Intranight is as cold as a stone still slick with dew. In the dark, a thread of warmth stirs to life, small as a fingertip, beating slow like a human heart and drawing scattered bodies close. From that tiny moment, night is no longer the sole dominion of fangs and yellow eyes. A ring of fine ash cups the heat against the earth. The scent of charred wood is light as dried rind. A thin veil of smoke hangs, and the rustle at the forest's edge drifts back. The soft blaze grants more waking after dusk, enough for a hand to keep grinding a flake of stone for a few more minutes, enough for a hard root to slacken under heat and release a strange, sweet fragrance. You sit at the rim of that circle. Feel the thin warmth brush your face. Hear your belly grow calm, and know the world's order has just turned a notch. The journey of fire began far away and long ago. In a deep cave of ancient earth, dust-fine ash braided with burnt bone stands as widely trusted proof that people learned to keep a live ember through cold winds. Along a northern water's edge, clusters of scorched seeds and blackened wood hint at hearths with places and rules and watchers who tended them. On stone slabs once cold as ice, managed heat shifted their colour and split them by design, yielding keen blades bright as drops of frozen light, signs of a mind that could plan, could wait, could reckon heat by hue, by smell, by time. Elsewhere, the glow endured in great frames of bone and simple huts, letting footsteps push deeper into the cold and widening the borders of survival. From a single ember, fire became a different way to eat, a different way to make, a different way to dwell, and, little by little, a different way to speak. Meat and roots that meet the heat no longer test the jaws. They turn into clean fuel that feeds a mind to think longer, to scheme beyond noon. Stone tempered by fire fractures to our will. Shafts harden in smoke. Tools last longer in patient hands. Around the circle of light, stories are born. When darkness closes, quiet gestures yield to breath, to chewing, to the murmur of telling, and a fledgling tongue finds a safe roof under which to grow. Tonight you will follow that warm trail through time. You will set your palm on earth dusted with ash in a deep cave. You will sit at a waterside where a hearth left its mark. You will taste the scent of a root that splits under heat. You will watch a stone change colour and shear apart like a bead of ice that slices light. You will see a warm shelter push back the season of cold, and a ring of low voices stretch the waking hours. Do not hurry. Do not force the rise. Let it open with even breath and the mild pulse of flame. And as your eyelids lower, a hush of warmth still hums beneath your breastbone, like a fire that needs no name yet, and is already enough to lead you on. The cave opens like a long stone throat, and the earth's breath drifts out in cool bands. Inside, the floor lies strangely level at the centre, not rough with scattered chips like the entrance. The air smells clean damp, a mix of fine sand and very old plant matter. Here, across seasons lost to time, early humans left faint yet lasting traces, a hush of warmth held through long cold. What remains in the deep layer is not a perfect hearth or a tidy bundle of fuel. It is dust-fine charcoal, bone fragments stained by heat, scraps of plants turned to ash, all set within ground that was warmed and cooled again and again. Many researchers, reading these signs, favour the idea that a fire was kept here, not a lightning flare that bloomed and died, but a watched heat held in the right place long enough to change the rhythm of life around it. Imagine a night of swirling wind, the forest noise pushed back to a thin curtain. At the mouth of the cave, the hulks of rock stand like the shoulders of great beasts. Within, on the flat floor, a patch of earth once dried more than the rest. A smooth ring, as if swept by patient hands. On it, small bones with dark and cut faces, as though they drank heat and slowly gave it back. Scattered through are scorch marks from plants, leaves and twigs that rose to a deep brown and crumbled into grey-bright powder. Nothing speaks in words, yet everything keeps time like an old, steady song. There were nights when wind poured into the cave and sifted a cold scent across the floor. There were mornings when vapour rose from damp earth like breath from a great clay jar. Through those turning seasons, a small community learned to gather around a warm spot and keep it alive. No one knows the name they gave the flame, but they knew to feed it. They set thin, dry slivers first, no thicker than a finger, and did not smother the glow with heavy limbs. They bled off heat by keeping strong gusts away, letting smoke rise slowly and even. They kept the firebed from sliding by clearing wet scraps before cold days came. Each person held a watch. When the guardian laid the back of a hand on the floor and felt it warm, they nodded once and fell quiet. Outside, night still belonged to yellow eyes and silent steps through grass and dust. Inside, a modest glow sharpened shapes by half a beat. Hands found the edge of a hide. Shoulders knew one another by moving warmth. The light was thin, but enough to keep chewing smooth. Bits of food rested near the heat until a sweet note rose. The breath of a root turned tender. Bite down, and the teeth no longer fought fibres. The mouthful slid into the belly like a clean stream. Fullness felt different, calmer, longer. Children fussed less when dark came, for the air no longer knifed their chests. Elders edged closer, skin drying under the warmth, coughs thinning and slowing. You can set your palm on the rock and sense a soft cloth of old damp. Sit at the rim of the level patch, and the new order born around the glow is easy to picture. No one needs to shout, for fire's pulse sets the beat. Where warmth reaches, bodies ease back to make space for the weaker. Smoke threads toward a draught. People learn to sit a little aside so eyes do not sting. When the wind at the cave mouth turns, the watcher shifts the fire a little deeper, hiding it from the direct stream. When the air is wet and kindling will be stubborn, they keep dry bundles raised a little above the floor. There is no vocabulary, yet an invisible ledger has opened in the hands, in the gaze, in the breath. This is not grassfire racing wild from a lightning strike. The flame here lies still. It holds to level ground. It does not leap to a far corner or hurl itself up the wall. People cleared its path, scraped away the wet, and dusted a thin dry bed before they touched spark to it. In that difference, it's the narrow border between survival and loss. Wildfire boasts with speed and hiss. Tended fire speaks in warmth and thin light, and fine ash rings and heat-blushed bone. The floor's record of burned bone and charred plants tells those who come after that the fire here was quiet and near. It did not devour. It sustained. Time changes shape inside the cave. In the soft flicker, the day lengthens by a nameless span. A few more minutes to grind a stone flake to a keener edge. A little more time to lash sinew to a shaft. A little more to portion food into mouth-sized pieces. Add those small spans and you gain new hours. They store strength for the day to come. With them, the people range a little farther in daylight. Bring back a few more scraps. Mend tools with care. Teach children the tiny things that keep you safe. The day no longer ends with a sudden cut of dark. It has a warm cushion at the edge, an invitation to stay without clutching fear. No one can say what was spoken around the fire. Perhaps nothing, not as we would name it. Yet the glow made a room without walls where eyes could meet at a human distance. In the dark, gesture is a language when faces catch a little light. Lips and tongue have space to practice. One sound slips out. Another answers. The fire snaps softly, marking the intervals between silences. Whether a full string of words blossomed or not, the fire set the rhythm of passing knowledge. Here, within the weak circle of light, memories of a day's hunt, a hidden water pocket. A slick stone step could move from elder to child without being stolen by the night wind. Fire is also a soft wall. The smoke is not thick, yet it irks a hunter's eye outside. The glow is not bright, yet it draws a line that makes paws hesitate. Not all creatures fear it. Protection is never absolute. The difference lies in early warning. By the fire, ears are not dulled by cutting wind. Skin does not curl from the cold. Eyes do not sink wholly into black. Every sense holds a little edge. A faint fall of grit beyond the rock face does not drown. A sudden damp at the entry is not ignored. The watcher need not hold breath against cold until sleep wins. Set side by side, these small advantages become survival. Fire teaches discipline. The ember dislikes fuss. Throw a large stick on a cool bed and it dies, and the camp must begin again at an ill turn of wind. Stir too hard at the centre and ash will smother the red. Let the glow creep to a rim of tinder and it becomes an enemy. So every move near the fire is unhurried. One person uses a thin stick to nudge a little. Another lays a dry sliver across the edge. A third draws away a pinch of cold ash to brace the boundary. The night is a long lesson in just enough. The hasty learn fast that haste does not save time here. It steals it. Fingers keep the smoke's scent, but this one is gentle. It wraps the body like a garment you can smell. At the cave mouth, smoke and skin blend into a scent of home. Not a home of walls and roof, but a home of rhythm. Someone keeps watch, someone sleeps, someone grinds, someone binds. Someone shifts a seat for an elder. Someone offers the softest bite to a child. Fire is the hub of the wheel. The scattered spokes find their axle. Look into it and you will see a quiet truth. Before people had words for community, fire had already given them its shape. The thin ash beds are not from a single night. They lie like pages, stacked light on light, tough enough to last, soft enough not to burden the ground. In some layers, bone is darker. In others, ash is finer. Sometimes you find flecks of altered plant among the grey, signs of dry twigs and leaves once tended. From the order of these layers, later people read another rhythm. Not a city's tale, but the practice of a hearth. One frame turns away, another turns back. Old ash is drawn aside to clear a clean bed for new heat. What cannot be used becomes a low rim that holds the edge, and then that rim itself becomes the next line of record. There is no human voice at the site today, only the rock's breath. Yet the rock tells. It speaks of a time far off, on the order of 1,000,000 years ago by many scholars' measure, when fire was no longer chance. Fingers had learned to wait. Eyes could tell the blue-black of cooling charcoal from the white of spent ash. Ears could hear the faint fizz of water leaving a dry sliver. These are not senses waking alone. They are a longer memory than a single meal. A memory that knows if warmth is kept tonight, tomorrow will be kinder. If the way of tending is passed to a child's hands, the next windy season will ease by a notch. Fire in the cave also taught where to put things. The warm centre was for eating and repair. The half-warm ring behind it was a resting place for elders and children. The rim was for drying wet gear. The mouth was for ears and eyes. No marks were needed. Habit held the plan. If someone drifted into the watcher's space, one glance sent them back a half step. If someone dragged a damp piece too near, a hand touched a wrist to say the fire does not like where. There was no punishment, because one untimely failure of the ember taught the cost to all. In the cave's dark, every small sound becomes a pulse. Even breathing, a faint pop of wood, a hush of stone on stone in a corner, like a tireless insect. Each sound is a count for memory. The night watch counts to stay awake. The napper counts to keep hands cool. The one who portions food counts to keep each piece equal. The fire does not speak, yet it conducts a quiet ensemble. Under that music, people pass the black part of the day whole. From outside, the cave is only a pocket of shadow, a place out of the wind. From within, it is the face of a deep change. Fire, since when settled in the heart of stone, remakes the border of night and day. It adds waking at the close of the old day and adds unbroken sleep to the birth of the next. It teaches sharing and waiting. It lays a soft threshold at the edge of safety. It builds a school without a board where every gesture writes a line. Stand at the rim of that glow and you can hear evolution speaking softly. Not loud, not grand, steady, certain, unyielding. Those early people did not know that far away. Ages later, others would read their ash and heat-marked bones and tell this story. They only knew the small click a dry twig makes when it meets red. They knew to keep a hand a fingertip's width from the ember so breath would not smother it. They knew to change the watch with a light touch to an ankle. Such little things pulled them through many winters, many winds, many long nights. Such little things left traces clear enough that later minds could see that a turning had come. The tale of the cave's ember is not a single miraculous night. It is many ordinary nights laid end to end into a long road. Each night the fire lies where it always lies. Warm to the proper measure, quiet to the needed measure, bright to the right measure. Each morning, ashes trimmed, the dry corner kept, the wet set to the side. Each evening, hands repeat the making ready. The day's circle thickens like a rope plaited from many small strands. The more you braid, the stronger it holds. The stronger it holds, the clearer the house becomes. Close your eyes inside that imagined cave and the fine rattle of fire is in your chest. The warmth is not great, yet enough to slow the heart and smooth it. A feeling rises under the breastbone that the world is not wholly set against you. Beast may still come near, wind may still strike. Rain may still pour. Even so, something new is present. It is the power to keep an ember alive through small shifts. It is the start of every long plan. It is the ground of every house to come. In the stone dark, the faintest sound becomes a metronome. On nights when the wind veers again and again, the ember stays at its familiar place on the level floor. The watcher touches it with a long stick. only enough to part a hair-thin seam in the ash. The seam lets the red breathe. If the breathing is even, the watcher draws the stick back and sits still until the wood gives a single pop. Time is measured by those delicate cracks, without any need to count high. When a sliver burns down, another hand lays a smaller piece beside it so the ember does not strain. The whole night is a wordless relay. On wet days, when earth's smell pushes past woods, keeping heat is harder by a step. The experienced eye reads the smoke. Too white, the sliver is still damp, too dense, the ember is choking. They crumble a little from the dry stash hanging inside and lay it along the rim. No one throws anything straight into the heart. Another hand sweeps a thin ring of cool ash outward like a low bank around a pool. These acts are patient and repeated, yet never mechanical. Each night has its own wind, each sliver its own grain. Fire forces a human to hone attention to a fine edge. The glow is the centre, yet life moves around it. Children tuck into the half-warm, where the air is mild and the light is just enough to see each other's hands. Small fingers learn to bring a root close and stop at the right distance. Elders lean against stone that has learned warmth and let their knees unlock slowly. Hunters returning late set their tools in the driest corner, mouths quiet, eyes bright. Nothing wet is allowed near the heat. No one writes that rule. Everyone knows it. Once, someone dragged a damp thing too close and the bed bubbled with a sound like quickened breath. The watcher did not scold. A hand touched a wrist and drew the wet away, then fed a dry sliver to the rim so the ember would not cool. A nod served for the lesson. Not every night is calm. Sometimes wind drives straight into the mouth and blows the red out. The watcher does not panic. Warm pockets hide under the ash. With the stick, they probe for the spot with the darker cast. A short breath, angled from the side, not a blast into the middle. A thin, dry splinter is laid near. Not on top. The red returns, modest at first, enough to pair with a second sliver. If the first try fails, they change the angle and try again without haste. In those seconds, every other body stills the cave so no sound rises above the ember's return. When the glow holds, a long breath passes through all of them. No one speaks. Everyone has moved closer to warmth. Ash clings to skin. At first it annoys, later it comforts. Near the mouth, cold wind and old smoke weave into a scent of home. The feeling travels with the group even when they must leave the cave in the dry season to seek food. When they return, one press of a back to a familiar slab and the ash scent calls up the memory of nights with a living ember. That's why the hearth place is not shifted on a whim. It stays on the level floor, a good distance from the wall so smoke can find the draught. In some seasons, the watcher reads heavier soot on the high stone and knows the column ran thick. They ease the fire inward a little and keep it there for many nights. Over time, that level patch becomes a durable map of memory where each stain marks a season past. Fire changes, eating, not only night's pace. A root hard as stone slackens by the right heat. Sweet rises, faint at first, then clear, jaws no longer grind. The tongue is spared the sharp green bite. The mouthful goes down quietly and the stomach does not rage. Meat does the same, fibres pulling in, then loosening. It is not only comfort, it frees more of the night. Instead of chewing without end, people can hone a flake, tighten a knot of sinew, check a tear in a hide so morning is not so cold. Those added hours turn into power for the next day. Without fire, the day drops off a cliff. With fire, the day has a folded edge like the hem of a blanket. By the glow, sharing takes on shape. The soft pieces go to children and elders. The steady pieces go to the watcher so eyes do not dull. The late returner gets what is still warm. No one must speak. The thin light lets faces read intention. If a hand reaches for more than its share, a single look is enough. Fire is a small mirror. Its light throws every gesture into clarity. Night grows warm and it also teaches measure. From measure, trust grows. Not a trinket worn on a string, but a weight that rests beside your back when you sleep. The night draws long. The watch changes with a touch to the ankle. The one just waking lays the back of the hand to the floor to test the warmth. If the bed holds heat, a small sweep opens the red to breathe. If the floor is cold, the work is harder. A dry splinter from the stash is set on the rim, and the watcher sits until the wood scent rises. Patience is armour after dark. Not iron, but a habit that tames every surge of haste. Once the fire is steady, other sounds return. Wind at the mouth no longer cuts the heart like a cold blade. It brushes past like the hem of a cloak. Forest noise becomes layers near and far. In such hours, the elders teach with their hands. A flat hand points where water once fell away fast. Fingers tap the stone to mark a slick step. An arm draws a path curling around a thicket. Words are not needed. The glow is enough for young eyes to follow. These signs are a night map. Without fire, the map lives in black. With fire, it appears quiet and sure. The flame reshapes how bodies hold space. The weak sit closest. The strong take the outer ring. The watchers cycle at the wall. The dry corner is for tools. The rim is for wet gear to dry. Every place has work to do. The newcomer does not know on the first night. By the second, the plan is in their hands and feet. Fire makes the space legible in rings, like ripples on a pond. It combs order into the night, not by force, by seepage. From the glow came another knowing. Fire does not have to be one point. Some nights you split it. A second small ember for drying gear in a corner while the main bed keeps people warm. Keep them far enough apart that the smokes do not tangle and blind the cave. These choices rise from reading smoke and wood and wind. No one measures with numbers. Everyone feels the narrow step between enough and too much. That narrow step is the craft. On a long rain day, water seeps into the floor and old ash turns slick and cold. The watcher does not strike in that muck. They spread a thin dry layer first, not thick enough to choke, not thin enough to flutter. When the ember catches, that layer becomes a bed. Beside it, someone sets a flat stone to pin a few slivers so they do not lift. Such small care shows that fire use is not luck. It is a deep knowledge of matter and wind, of hand and rhythm. It has no name yet. It makes the difference between a warm cave and a dark one. Sleep changes under fire's rule. No more constant spasms against the cold. Breathing goes deeper. Dreams run longer. The watcher still wakes, yet does not have to fight the chill at every turn. With deeper sleep, the next day lies lighter on the shoulders. Small sickness passes more easily. Children's eyes lose the grey rims of early fatigue. Elders cough less. Fire cures nothing by itself. It lays down a safe ground where the body can work. On that ground, memory keeps better. A hunter recalls the exact notch between rocks. A forager recalls where roots sprout after rain. Fire feeds memory by easing fear and cold. On the edge of light, you see something hard to name. People no longer flee the night. They begin to use it. Use it to eat in peace. Use it to mend. Use it to teach. Use it to keep still and listen. In that stillness, sounds and signs grow into language. A thick cough in a corner says, "Bring that body closer to warmth." A light tap of stone means the edge is keen. Store it. A pop of wood means the ember wants a fresh sliver. No clear sentences, yet a structure forms. With structure, the group finds its spine. The proof for later ages is not a tale handed down. It is the thin ash in the cave's heart, the heat-marked bone, the altered plant remains. Everything lies within a tight circle, not smeared as a forest burn would be, not tangled as a wind-blown ruin would be. The clustering of dark traces around one point says this place once had a centre. The centre did not wander with the breeze. It was watched and fed and cleaned and restored and fed again. The way the traces rest tells a long story, not a quick accident. From that centre, life pushed outward. Those in the cave could step into the cold with a different endurance. They had a place to return by night. Their tools were better mended. Their meals sat quiet in the gut. They knew how to rank the bites. They could retell the path in the evening when hands were free and ears were open. They had practiced the care of something fragile that listens to human touch. Tending fire trains you to tend other living threads. Water veins. Game paths. Seasons. At times, when you lift your face, a thin streak runs high above, skylight sliding like a drawn spark that fades. The ember below does not compete. It keeps its small pulse, enough to light a face. That humility seeds a hidden strength. With it, a community crosses winds and rains and prowling nights. With it, thin ash can lie over thin ash. With it, later people find marks that show a turning once took hold here. Night runs to its coolest hour. The last watcher lays one more sliver on the rim and draws cold ash to the edge. The dawn watcher lays the back of a hand on the floor and feels the warmth that remains. It is like the heat left in the chest after a quiet sleep. Not blazing, just enough to promise a smooth start. One deep breath. A hide pulled up over an elder's shoulder. A newly sharpened flake tucked into its pouch. A glance to the tool corner to be certain no wet thing lingers. The night is finished. When the thinnest pale of morning steps into the cave and the fire has lain down in ash, yet it has not vanished. It survives as a clear idea in the watcher's mind. With the right sliver, the right distance, the right slant of breath, it will rise. That trust is the deepest change. No more waiting on lightning. No more fearing the dark as an enemy that will not parley. People have a standing meeting with warmth. It is fragile, yet the longer it is kept, the stronger it stands. At the mouth of the cave, the wind carries the far scent of water. Inside, eyes trained in shadow make out the marks on the floor. A new day is near. From the steadiness of the night before, the people will step out with new strength, a clearer mind, a sharper sense of their place in a wide world. The ember did more than spare them from cold. It taught them how to look, how to wait, how to keep, how to share, how to yield a half step at the right moment. In those lessons, you can hear the soft breath of a long future beginning on a level patch of earth in the heart of stone. First light brushes the walls and shows dark smears on the ceiling where smoke once climbed and paused. The stains are not scattered without cause. They gather over the level floor, as if warmth stood here many nights and drew a dim map on the cave's roof. On the ground, ash lies in a low ring. Touch it with a fingertip and it is cool and soft, sometimes with a hard grain crumbling between your nails. A fleck of plant once transformed. Every detail is small. Once your eyes learn the tones and your hand the weight, the whole floor opens like a thick page. The food from last night has left only a thread of sweetness in the air, braided with gentle smoke. Children turn over in even breath. Elders wake first and set a palm on the floor's mild heat, as if taking the day's pulse. Those who will go far rise slowly. Tools left in the dry corner keep their shape. Stone points carry a faint sheen. Sinew bound to wood has not drunk damp. A single pass along an edge may be all that is needed. The light is not strong enough to show the whole cave, yet it is enough to set eyes on the way out. As they go, each person brushes the ash ring with the fingers, a greeting for a silent guard. Those who stay and order the bed. They draw cool ash to one side and clear a fresh circle. No speech is needed. One glance shows the method. A pinch of thin, dry splinters rests on the edge of the clean ring, away from last night's heart. A flat stone pins one side so the slivers will not lift on a draught. A slanted breath, and red shows, then slips away like a fisheye under water. The second breath draws longer. The ember remains. Wood scent rises, laced with a hint of dry grass, a hard-to-name smell of home. The glow answers with a small sound. Since the ember came, night is no longer a solid wall. It is a door set ajar, letting inside and outside see each other through a thin screen. That makes the group's memory tougher. Day's lessons tie to night. The way to place a foot on a slick stone stair is acted out by hand on the floor. A root bed to revisit after rain is marked with a small pebble nudged up on the ash rim. Light hints become common rhythm. There is not always a tale, yet there is always this beat. It is this steady measure that weaves an unseen cord between bodies. Every place in the cave keeps its work. The inward wall, where stone holds the back, is for sleep. The half-warm for children and elders. The mouth for watch. The brightest ring for hands at work. Here, tools are mended in silence. A dull flake, warmed a little, cuts sinew more cleanly because the hand no longer shakes with cold. Even without theories of heat, people felt that warmth steadies the hand and clears the eye. So each task is drawn gently toward where one can see better and tremble less. No one knows how many seasons pass like this. Layer on layer of ash, thin yet stubborn. Heat-dark bones threaded through, echoes of meals that carried people over the night's back. In all these traces a single theme returns. Everything gathers within bounds, not on a streak like a running blaze. The pattern leads later minds to believe the fire here was not a wild burst that fell to wind. It was kept and watched and tidied and used. Kept is a quiet word, yet it runs deep. It says something fragile was placed at a community centre, so all could learn the same lesson of measure. Even forest beasts meet this soft wall. Not all turn away, but most halt at the fringe of smoke. The scent lies on hair and human skin in a way they do not like. The ember's light is not fierce, yet it draws a border between in and out. Some nights, feet flash past the mouth and many sit up at once. No one cries out. The watcher lifts a stick and touches the ash rim to remind the ember to breathe a little louder. A thin thread of smoke stands. Silence falls outside. The soft wall thickens with the cave's stillness. Meals change by the glow. Instead of seizing the easiest bite, portions follow a wordless rule. No pointing hand, only eyes. The tender piece moves to an elder's grip. A steady bite slips to the watcher. Those who set out far at dawn receive enough to carry strength. Children are fed with the cool edge of a piece. This way of sharing grows from the thin light that makes faces speak their intent. Under it, greed is hard to hide. No one judges, yet no one wants the fire to show them offbeat. From that light, a law without letters rises, braided night after night. Some nights stretch longer than most. The air so wet it seems water runs inside the stone. Then the ember needs shelter. The watcher spreads 2 thin layers of dry, so heat is not sucked into the damp floor. A larger stone is set on the windward side, a low shield. Only when the first pop of wood sounds do they dare lay a thicker piece. It all comes down to distance and time, the gap between sliver and core, the space between breath and flame, the small space between big wants and small steps, the time for all things to ripen to use. Old night gives to new. Watchers take turns like links in a chain. Each knows their part. The first does not blaze. The middle keeps the pace. The last, before dawn, smooths the bed and returns the ember to ash. 3 shoulders like 3 seasons. If one hurries, the chain fails. Fire makes each person understand their role without names. When the parts lock, the whole grows light in the day. You can hear this kind of strength in the footfalls as the group leaves the cave. Their steps carry the same beat. No one stops early with exhaustion. That strength began with an ember tended without waste. There are tiny moments with large meaning. A child stands too near and a hand without measure reaches out. Another hand touches and draws them back half a step. Years later, that grown child will make the same light touch. A shadow perfectly repeated. Fire passes more than warmth. It passes away to live in a circle. How to yield half a step so another is safe. How to wait half a beat so the ember can breathe. How to lay down half a portion so the whole is not short. Add those halves and you make a circle that does not break. Lift your eyes from the floor to the wall and you will find faint tracings, the path smoke once drew. They lean in a single direction, likely the cave's favoured wind. They testify to repetition, not one night, not one week. A long chain that many scholars now place far back, around 1 million years ago. Not the only milestone of ancient fire, but a clear one written in stone. What the flame did here needs no shout. It altered the body's habits. It changed the day's beat. It changed how people looked at one another. As first light grows stronger, the forest's voice outside moves from whisper to a wide ground tone. The watcher draws the warm ash inward and spreads it thin, not to smother, to put the ember to sleep. Smoke slips into morning air and becomes the scent of an unseen roof. One task remains. Gather the light, dry slivers and hang them high out of the day's damp floor. Toward evening, when shadows stretch, those slivers will return to their places with the right slant of breath to wake the ember. Day pulls the group out of the cave. The wind carries the smell of distant water and the grit of stones rolling under current. Where there is a stream, the old ones choose a flat patch of earth, set back from the edge so smoke does not blow into the face. There, little burnt seeds will lie in clusters and heat-darkened stones will scatter near the hearth. That scene is not here yet. It forms in the listener's mind, a next phrase to the same song. Where there is rhythm, there is a circle. The ember that lay quiet in the cave will go down to the bank and find a similar place to breathe. New traces will form, simple as ash and seed, durable as the memory in human hands. Before you step out, pause one more breath. No words, only a look at the level floor, you know. The fine ash has not drifted. The smoke scent is calm. The wall holds shadow like a palm cupping a secret. There is no grand music, only rock breathing and the soft murmur of people. Even with the ember tucked under ash, the sense of fire sits in your chest like a coal kept warm behind the breastbone. You cannot see it, yet it is enough to lead your feet into the wide world. From here, the journey of fire will follow the cool, flat earth of a riverbank. There, a scatter of burnt seed and a few darkened sticks will keep telling the quiet story of our kind. On the damp stone bank, crumbs of burnt seed lie exactly where they should. Like tiny stars. They did not fall at random. They gather in modest constellations, each one a little sky drawn close to the ground. If you bend low and let your eyes learn the pale and dark of rock, grass, and soil, you will see clean gaps between those clusters, just wide enough for someone to sit and for someone else to set down a dry sliver of wood. To the right, there is the trace of wood burned to delicate charcoal. To the left, a flint flake has darkened where it met heat. The whole bank reads like a small map, a place where fire once lived with a seat and a rhythm. Water runs level like a cool black line, carrying the smell of wet stone and weed. At Gesher Benot Yaakov, far back in time, a stretch of bank like this once held cooking fires long enough for wind to thread their smoke and leave behind clusters of burnt cedar, charred wood, and heat-darkened flint. Within the bounds of what the ground still keeps, these signs show that fire was no passing guest here. It was held to chosen spots. Old scents of charcoal and roasted seeds sank into the soil like a whisper repeated for many seasons. Where breeze skims the water, someone chose a patch a little set back so smoke would not blow straight into the face. There was no need to build anything elaborate, only a strip of ground flatter and drier than its neighbours, enough to keep the flame from drowning in damp. When the wind swung, the hearth shifted by half a body. That slow shift left rings of little stars in clusters. Not far off, charred seeds of wild foods rest at the grass edge. Wild olive, wild barley, wild grape. Things once in human hands met heat and changed their smell. No one knows the names they used for these seeds, yet those who came later read the scorch and trust that the fires here once warmed meals from nearby fruit and grain. You sit with both feet on the rim where the earth is still wet. Water touches your ankle and draws back, leaving a chill like the river's breath. Above you lies a knot of burnt seed, dark brown like the skin of fruit kissed by flame. A few grey-black splinters of slim wood lie lightly one over another. In that grey lies a flint piece turned darker by heat, its edge no longer neat as when it left the napper's hand, but marked as if it had faced a trial by fire. Each small trace speaks softly, yet together they draw the shape of a tended hearth. Not a stray spark, but a deliberate gathering point, watched and fed, then left to rest so it could wake the next day in the same place or half an arm's length away. When fire sits beside water, the day lengthens by a cool measure. At the lean of noon, the firekeeper reads the colour of smoke to judge whether the sliver is dry enough. Thin and even means the ember breathes well. Thick and too white means the wood is still wet. None of this needs numbers. It comes from eye and nose, from habits learned with a cave hearth and carried into the open. Water's voice lays the background, and the small pops of wood become punctuation that tell the watcher when to add and when to let the flame breathe on its own. A riverside meal carries a different fragrance than a meal in the cave. Dry charcoal air and the fat scent of meat pull back, leaving room for the sweetness of seed and fruit touched by heat. A handful of wild barley, cured enough in the sun, set along the rim lifts a mild straw aroma. Wild olive does not need to soften like a root, only to warm until its bite eases. Wild grapes held close for a moment, skins only just warm, give off a thin sugar note that settles the belly. These acts play out on the same ring of earth, where the star clusters repeat like a refrain that always finds its way home. In the river's rhythm, bodies move around the fire as around a heart under open sky. The watcher sits on the windward side to spare the eyes. The one preparing seed stands a little aside, so the ember's breath is not blocked. Those waiting their share stay on the rim where warmth still touches the hand. When the wind leans over the water, the circle eases back half a step and the hearth is drawn back with it. The proof that remains is in the offset clusters of burnt seed, close but not the same spot, like the crossing tracks of a band used to fire's beat. Here the day does not break when the sun slides level with the water. A small flame wakes before night is fully dark, bright enough for hands to see the line between seed and stone. Another span appears for sharpening the used edge of a flint, another for husking dry grain. Those added hours do not spill into emptiness. They braid into a working current. At the fire, in the half-light, every motion gains a clear outline. If a hand moves too fast toward the flame, a glance from the watcher is enough. When smoke signals wet wood, the one handling the seas shifts the basket a little toward the dry. After a few evenings like this, the riverbank becomes a school, where bodies tune one another by attention, not by shouted orders. There is no built house, yet a cadence rises. Morning, a thin mist hangs over the water and the hearth rests. When the ground takes warmth again, the first cluster of stars is kindled. At noon, the fire settles back, letting the cool wind pass. Toward evening, a second cluster appears, Set a little aside to dodge the headwind. At dusk, a third cluster holds the heat and a few dry slivers are spread. These clusters are not imagined. The spread of burnt seed and heat-dark flint in nearby but not identical spots says the old ones kept this pattern for many days and many seasons. Within the record the soil preserves, you can picture a stable habit, not a scatter of accidents. At times you can crouch so near you can count how many charred grains lie in a single cluster. Repetition slows the hand by itself. A few seeds sit on the rim, the spill from a shared portion. A few sit near the centre, as if stirred to warm more evenly. Between them lie slim lengths of burnt wood that tell you the fuel was twig and switch, not heavy logs. From this the later reader learns more about tending. Do not drag in a thick branch. Do not burn hard and wasteful. Lay small pieces and feed steady. These simple rules make a system that costs little strength and lasts for a many-person group. Water is a gift and a test. A gift because it cools and cleans, because washed seed dries quickly in the breeze. A test because wind shifts without warning. The watcher learns to read the surface to predict a turn. When the edge grits with tiny dimples, a gust is near. When the top skin draws into long smooth streaks, the wind will lie down. The hearth follows those signs. In rough wind, the watcher does not add a thick piece. They keep the ember breathing and wait for calm before returning to full work. So the hearth stays gentle, neither flaring nor failing. Around the fire, the work is quiet and plentiful. Seeds are picked over on a flat stone, sifted free of sand and grit. Dry hulls are heaped to one side, never thrown where the wind can drive them back. Slender wood is broken by hand, not for thrusting, for feeding. A flint piece that has chipped is stroked lightly on another slab to smooth its burrs. The back and forth of two hands makes a whisper like an insect's note, just enough to tell anyone nearby that the tool will soon be ready again. Because the warm light extends the last part of the day, these tasks do not pile onto morning, and the whole band tires less. Try placing an imagined dry grain on the rim of the heat. Watch the skin swell a little, hear a sweet hay scent rise. Feel a finger graze the surface to take the measure by touch. The body carries its own science. When the smell is right, the seed is drawn away. The same with a wild grape and other small fruits. Nothing fancy is cooked. It is only making what is at hand easier to swallow. Less energy is wasted. The body fights less with chew and swallow, all by small things, repeated at a steady pace. Firelight does another kind of work. It paints faces with soft bands of light and dark. At that distance, eyes and mouth are easier to read. So dealings between people glide more cleanly. When someone's turn at the watch arrives, there is no need to call names. One look trades the shift. When it is time to damp the hearth, a hand pinches cool ash and strews a thin veil. Not a slap. That way of damping leaves a flat skin of powder that, later, under a fingertip, feels like ground flour. It is the signature of a fire that keeps time. As the sky sinks, the water changes colour as slowly as a great beast-changing skin. On the bank the day's third star cluster shows. It is not large, not showy. It is just enough to keep the hands from shaking. In that light, portions move without quarrelling. The hottest bites are set aside for the old and the young. The steady share goes to the watcher. The rest goes to those who will travel at first light. The ritual needs no name. Once a band grows used to it, they grow steadier by a notch. The fire is not merely warmth. It is an axle. The whole circle turns around without striking. Night returns. Water sighs. Today's star clusters remain. Tomorrow the water will fall, the wind will change, and the hearth may shift by half a body. Across a long run of time, the traces here repeat the same tale. Seeds, twigs, and flint darkened by heat form clusters along the bank. The fires had natural places and unwritten rules that everyone kept. The light stretched work past sunset and opened space for careful hands. Each star cluster is a breath. Each breath is another hour of life. From those hours, a larger change gathers quietly in the body, and in the way a brain spends its power. That part becomes clear only when cooked food turns into a habit around many fires, when teeth and gut begin to change, when the budget of a day shifts toward thinking and finer craft. For now, it is enough to watch the little stars resting on wet ground and know that a pattern is weaving itself by the water. The bank lies still like a wide mirror laid flat to the earth. Wind drifts from the channel, slides over the stones, and lifts across the low turf, where damp lingers on smooth rock. A cluster of burnt seed sits darker than the ground. Tilt your head and you will see the grey-black rims of charred twig. Between them lies flint turned deep by heat. There is no sweeping scar of grassland fire. Each cluster is a small island with shore, core, and a clean forecourt where a person might kneel or sit. This is not a stray fancy. Within what survives in the soil, the reader sees a habit of fire with place and pulse, carried through many seasons, not a few lightning scars. Just below runs water, shallow, quiet, cold. Near water the wind is fickle. The hearth is not set on the lip. A knuckle of ground, drier by half a hand than the flat nearby, becomes the favoured spot. If the wind kicks back across the current, the hearth retreats half a body. When the air lies still, the flame returns to its old seat, like a small creature climbing back into a known nest. The movement leaves a string of dark clusters, each one only slightly offset. Clean spaces between them are wide enough to set a seed basket or spread a dry hide. The scene is calm yet alive, as if the whole bank breathes through small embers. Hands work to the fire's cadence. Seed is picked over on a washed slab and poured into a fold of hide. When the light grows warm enough for eyes to read the line between husk and kernel, the first handful is placed at the rim to let heat soften the outer skin. There is no drive to cook through, only to warm enough to pull back bitterness and lift a thin sweetness. Wild olive, wild barley, wild grape, near at hand and easy to find. Change scent quickly. Barley husks whisper like dry grass. Olive loses its sting. Wild grape releases a faint sugar smell. A riverside meal is not heavy with meat. The main rhythm is seed, fruit, root. Fire here does fine work, easing the burden of raw chewing and helping the belly receive food without quarrel. In the low circle of light, people take their sensible places without a word. The watcher finds the windward seat so the eyes will not burn. The seed handler stands off on a slant, shifting so smoke will not wash into the basket. Those waiting linger at the rim where warmth still touches. When the wind pushes, the ring slides back half a step. When the air rests, the ring draws in. The habit, done again and again, presses into the ground as clusters of coal and darkened flint. Each cluster is a long exposure picture of one session of kindling, tending, damping, and kindling again. There is no stone curb for the hearth, no built oven, no pottery. The firmest proof is the pattern itself. Burnt seed gathers with charred twig and heat-marked flint at sites close to water, safe from being washed away, never stretched into a long scorch. These things say that someone sat here, watched here, ate here, and left when night deepened or wind turned, then came back soon after. The rest we leave to disciplined imagination. We do not know what they said, but we know they sat close. We do not know which hands were most skilled, but we see the fire was kept steady enough not to fall to cold ash at the wrong time. The day's rhythm lays itself out. Morning, with mist lying thin over the water, the hearth is quiet. As the sun climbs and the ground warms, the first cluster is lit, small and even. At high noon the fire eases back. The river glitters, the wind toys. By late day a second cluster appears, set far enough from the first to dodge the contrary gusts. When the air hums in low voices, the third wakes, low and small, not flaunting its light, only keeping hands from shaking and eyes from blurring. Afterward, cool ash is laid in a veil, and the ember sleeps under the light cover like an insect slipping into sand. Each day like this adds to the band's capacity. Warmth after sundown opens time for careful work. The chipped edge of flint is dressed again. Sinew is tied off with titus and even loops. The seed basket's weave gains another firm square. Every task benefits from mild light and mild heat. When hands do not shake with cold, knots hold. When eyes do not squint into dark, sorting grain, choosing fuel, and reading smoke become precise. That is how a day stretches without wearing the body down. Night comes. The river keeps a steady ground tone. The wind shifts little, and the hearth lies near where it was at dusk. In the thin light, faces show just enough line. That small show changes how portions move. No more sly reaches, because the light is just bright enough that everyone can see one another's hands. The warmest bite goes to the old and the young, the steady share to the watcher, the rest to the ones who will go far in the dim. No one raises a hand to claim. Fire makes a gentle mirror and shows enough for each person to correct themselves. Near water, safety is never complete. The smoke's light scent makes beasts uneasy. The fire's small voice helps human ears catch a strange tread. Setting the hearth back from the lip-cut slips and soaking risk. The watcher knows the bank like a palm. They can point to the curls where wind turns, the patches where ground gives, the marks where water rises without warning. All of this comes from staying long and looking close. When it is time to quench, cool ash is spread thin over the red. No sticks thumped down, only a veil, so that in the morning the ember can wake at once. The careful damp leaves a smooth layer that later fingers will know as powder, not clumps. Tools wait on the dry rim, away from wet breath. The flint pieces, sharpened and used, carry edges like fine teeth. Set close to the warmth for a brief time, the grip hand loses its numbness and sinew slices cleaner. Mixed among ash and charred seed, the darkened flint chips are proof that tools lay here while the hearth lived. Those who come after see that pairing and understand that fire and tool belong together. Fire does not only cook, it lays a ground for repair, for preparation, for cooperation. Children learn by sight. A small hand sets a seed too near. Another hand touches lightly and draws it back half a step. Next time the distance measures itself inside the mind. The gap between seed and heat. The gap between breath and ember. The gap between wanting and enough. Fire teaches the rungs of degrees and times. Knowledge without letters that bites deep into the body. Children also learn to read water to if the surface pricks with tiny beads, wind will strike. If it draws smooth like stretched hide, wind will rest. These slight signs become a working calendar for the hearth. When rain comes thinly down from the bend upstream, the ground drinks and the ash dampens. No one tries to bluster through. A thin layer of dry is spread to make a new face on the wet floor. Then a small ember is nursed, low and steady, until the bed grows warm. Do not force it large. Rain does not reward haste. Keep the ember breathing and wait for the turn. Wet smoke has a different smell, heavy and deep, one the nose remembers. When the rain passes, there is no need to start from nothing. One thin sliver, one slanted breath, and the flame stands again. The marks of such days stay in the soil. Ash lies smoother and more even. Burnt twig powders to a fine layer and drifts outward. Heat-dark flint lies still like black beans flecked through grey meal. For those who can read them, these signs tell the story without excess. The day grows longer by the hearth. Low warmth opens a road for delicate tasks after dusk. Someone dresses the flint edge that chipped, turning the wrist in tiny beats until the cut runs straight. Someone else twists a loose sinew cord, each wrap firm and even. Another checks the basket lining and mends a split with a thin thread from old sinew. With less cold in the hands, not set well. With less strain in the eyes, sharp borders fall exactly where they should. These extra hours do not make trophies. They stitch a day into a tough cloth. In the morning the whole band steps lighter, because the night did not drain them with raw, chewing and shivering wind. The riverside fire also teaches how to see one another. Thin light draws a clear line around eye and mouth. Under that light, it is hard to hide a grass for more than your share. There is no need for a speech to pass the warm piece to an elder. One nod, one placement of a bite into the right hand, and it is done. Children learn fast. They edge too close and a hand touches their wrist and draws them back half a step. Next time they stop at that measure, distance becomes a rule inside the body. The gap between seed and ember, the space between breath and flame, the space between intent and common share. No one writes these rules. Everyone in the ring can read them. Sometimes beasts come to drink. Grit shifts on the shingle and all heads lift. No one cries out. The watcher touches the rim so the ember breathes one beat stronger. Smoke stands like a thread. The animal halts at the smoke's edge, tests the air for a long moment, then slides back into shadow. Fire does not win by glare, it wins by boundary. The line is so thin a person can step across it, yet clear enough that a prowler must think twice. On banks like these, such a line is woven anew each day by small dark clusters of ash, by a steady smoke scent, by the habit of veiling the red with cool dust before leaving. Within what the ground still holds, what we can say about this place is plain and firm. There are clusters of burnt seeds lying near one another along the shore. There are drifts of charred twig. There are flint flakes deepened by heat. The clusters do not stretch into long burn scars, nor do they scatter like a brush fire. They gather. They have edges. They repeat close by. From this we may say the fire here was used on purpose, tended, damped, and brought back to life. Beyond these marks we do not claim. We will not put words in their mouths or build ceremonies where the soil is silent. Even so, these few signs raise a whole picture. The riverbank becomes an open workshop. The hearth is the hub. Work and eating twine together. Warmth pushes the day past sunset, letting bodies spend less energy on raw chewing and cold and more on nimble hands and quiet thought. Memory holds better when the belly sits easy. Ties between people tighten, because the shared work of cooking and making asks each to read the other without speech. The riverside fire is not only an ember, it is the unseen hand laying out the hours and the duties so a group can live with less risk and more calm. Every small dark cluster is a brick in the foundation of what we call living in peace. You step to the left, where the bank lifts a notch, and look along the shore. The ground stars seem to flare a fraction when the sun glances in. They are like repeating bars of music. Fix on one cluster and you can hear one day. Follow the string and you can hear a season. Water is the deep drone. Thin smoke is the hanging line. The patter of grain poured into a palm is the soft percussion. When all of it joins, fire's story is so clear it needs no words. Fire does not only cook, fire bends the day's beat. Fire teaches a taste for the right slowness. Fire teaches the common share. Midday, a strong gust presses from the bend. The hearth slides back half a body and the seed basket is set on a flat rock. You take a thin, long sliver and lay it with the wind, so the flame is not slapped flat. Smoke runs low, yet even. Soon the gust eases and the hearth moves forward. These moves are not dramatic, yet they keep the lifeline from snapping. Try to flare big in wind and the fire will blaze and die. Ash will fly wild, seed will spill. Strike hard when damping, and in the morning there will be no ember sleeping under ash. People who have stayed long by water know this, so every act is done with light hands and careful eyes. The evening meal is the one memory holds. Warm seed, gentled fruit, a quiet belly. An elder leans on the higher bank. A child rests against a knee and accepts a cool seed in the palm. The watcher chews the steady share and does not leave the smoke unattended. Each portion finds its proper hand, not because a law is written, but because the thin light has made faces open and straight, and each person wants to be round within the circle. When that roundness holds, people leave the hearth quietly. Cool ash is spread in a veil. The good dry slivers are hung high. The seed basket is tied tight at the mouth. The flint piece goes into the hide pouch. The bank gives back a silent farewell. Night deepens. Fireflies in the low grass blink like punctuation on a line. The day's third hearth has lain down. The water breathes wide. You lie on your side with your back on the place still mild from the morning fire and listen to the current's steady run. Inside you, a slow change moves without a name. Warm food has steadied the hand, soothed the stomach, and told the jaws to unclench. If enough evenings pass like this, teeth need not be as large to fight raw food, and the gut need not be as long to wring power from tough fare. The body can ease away from grinding and digesting, and spare more for something else that always asks much. The brain that plans farther, remembers longer, thinks deeper. That does not come in a few seasons. It comes across long ribbons of time, when hearths become routine on many banks, when warm eating ceases to be luck and becomes a way of life. Within what the earth has kept, we can point to the smell of roasted seed, the charcoal of twigs, the flint deepened by heat, the clusters gathered close. We will not add details that leave no mark. Yet even so, the riverside fire did a great quiet work. It pushed the day beyond the wall of dusk. It opened hours for fine hands and patient memory. It taught those in the ring about the common share and the right distance. It raised a soft border that prowlers dislike. From that ground, everything else had room to grow. Late, the mist draws back into a thin veil. The riverbank blurs like a dream. You sit up and sift fine ash over the ember and hear a very gentle hush. There is no last puff of smoke, only a warm scent mixing with the mist like a lullaby. The hearth sleeps. The water keeps going. On the ground, the small black stars lie still like letters in a long story. Tomorrow, when the sun climbs a notch, the hearth will open its eye in the old place or slide half a body to greet the wind. You will set grain on the rim and breathe in straw and thin sugar. From such small acts, kept over time, a great change has taken root. And downriver, where other hands hold stone by firelight, tools will begin to cross a finer threshold under heat. That will be the next chapter. Tonight, it is enough to hold a little warmth under the breastbone like a sleeping coal, to listen to water run past the bank, and to trust that tomorrow the fire will breathe evenly by the current. The hard root slackens under the heat, a sweet scent lifts, and the rhythm of chewing slows. On the levelled earth beside the hearth, fine ash keeps the warmth like a thin blanket. From the rim of the fire, heat slides across your wrist and rests in the palm that holds the leaf wrapped around the root. Tiny streams of water trapped in the root's flesh slip out and meet the heat. The surface glosses, then yields. The sweetness is not strong, only a thin ribbon of smell, yet inside the body a clear signal travels to the stomach. Tonight, the food will go down easily. The ring of people sits nearer or farther by age and role. Closest to the warmth is the watcher, eyes still reading the smoke. Beside them sits the server, laying neat shares on a flat stone. Elders rest in the warmest lee, away from draughts. Children lean on grown knees and wait for a piece that has cooled. A little farther off are those just back from the waterline, hands still gritted with sand, eyes silently counting the tasks that must be done before full dark. No one raises a voice. The low light is enough for talk by gesture, enough to see a mouth press when a piece is still hot, enough to know when to give way or step back half a pace. One root is ready. The leaf opens and a soft smoke rises like a breath. A stone blade pricks the surface to test it. The outer layer has turned translucent, the flesh no longer stubborn as it was raw. The edge draws a short line and portions fall into even bites. The first piece goes to the old, the second rests in the watcher's hand. The child's share is set aside until it cools. The rest follow the order that everyone now understands. Fire turns a meal into a ritual with a beat, drawing every arm into the same orbit. The first sensation as the warm root touches the tongue is the jaw letting go. Instead of hard grinding to tear fibres and break walls, the teeth press lightly. The tongue can move food from side to side without force. Saliva no longer races a raw and stringy mouthful. To modern eyes, these are signs of a less costly digestion. Cooking, at its simplest, softens structure, unlocks nutrients, and eases the gut's burden. Within today's understanding, many researchers make the energy case this way. Cooked food yields more energy from the same mass. The price of chewing and digestion drops. A thin slice of meat comes off the hearth's edge. Fat beads, then settles. The rich scent deepens, the raw bite fades. The knife scores along the grain, careful not to tear. The gristly piece goes to the one whose teeth and jaw can manage it. The softer strip, especially the thin charred edge, is passed to the old. Children bite very slowly because their share is always cooled well. These small habits make the meal durable. The weak are not pushed out because they cannot chew. Children are not left hungry because raw food is too tough. From this manner of sharing, the whole circle grows steadier in the days that follow, because everyone keeps their strength. Chew slowly, the body stops rushing, the mind finds space. In that space, the eye returns to the hearth. Measuring thin smoke or thick, reading which way the wind favours, the ear hears stone click against stone by the cave mouth and can tell beast or breeze. Lessons of fire, water, wind, and safety take root inside each meal. A meal is no longer only for fullness. It is the hour when a band knots together the day's loose threads, teaching by hand and eye. While the fire still breathes, the mind stays open for one more habit to enter. So the glow carries the day past the line of sunset and lays extra time for quiet, precise work. Lasting satiety rises like a warm base across the belly. It is not the quick swell and quick collapse of raw food. When roots are tender and meat is just done, the stomach is spared the wrenching labour of breaking string by string. The gut does not have to churn for long to pull what it needs. The fatigue that follows a meal lessens. When supper does not drain the body, the hours that remain can be used to true a cutting edge. Twist fresh sinew, count dry grain, tie off a basket mouth. A few dozen careful beats of the hand each night, night after night, and the band's tools step up a grade. Better tools mean fewer fires to put out tomorrow, less energy lost to breakage and repair. The surplus of energy is small but steady, and that matters most. In many accounts of our evolution, the high cost of a large brain is a central theme. The brain eats much compared to the body. On raw fare alone, a person would need to devote long hours each day just to feed it. Modern estimates have put that figure at over 9 hours a day if all food were raw for a brain like ours. The number is not for drama, it is for shape. With cooking, energy flows in faster and more reliably. While the time and metabolic strain of chewing and extracting fall, the day's budget of time and power can be spent differently. Night goes on. A small basket of seed roasted lightly gives off a gentle straw scent as it is stirred. The kernels are not blackened, only warmed. So the hulls slip. The hearts go down kindly. Hands turn in sequence like a little wheel. Elders receive first. Children are fed. The watcher eats last, eyes never leaving the smoke. Each round of eating resets the body's priorities. Once the belly is settled, the eye can look farther, the ear can listen finer, the hand is calm enough to tie a perfect knot. Big changes do not come in one meal. They come in long runs of habit. If cooked eating lasts across enough years, teeth may not need such heavy work. Jaws may not have to be as large. The gut may shorten in function. These statements require a careful voice. Bone and tooth samples across time show a slow trend towards smaller forms that rises alongside changes in diet and tools. That timing hints at an energy link. Not every flame shrinks a tooth at once. Not every hearth trims a gut in a season. These are long currents, where cooked food contributes to a larger picture. Children gain first and most. A warm, soft bite teaches the tongue and throat what safety feels like. A morsel of just done meat lets a small body take on energy quickly, without paying too high a digestive price. A child with a steady belly and fewer cramps cries less at night. Grown people sleep deeper. Tomorrow is less heavy, with less weariness. Choices sharpen. The farther path along the bank is chosen with less risk. The hour to approach the bar is chosen with a better wind. The place to set the hearth sits at the right distance from the lip. One warm bite can unfold such a chain. The old keep their place because of cooked food. Their teeth cannot grind raw fare. A soft, warm slice placed in the right hand keeps them in the circle for more seasons. They keep pointing out where the ground gives way, when the wind tends to turn, how to lay a thin veil of ash so the ember wakes easily at dawn. Their knowledge is not carved on stone, it is carried in a body. To keep that knowledge, the body must not fail too soon, and the cooked meal helps it hold. You sit a little aside and smooth a line of fine ash with your finger. That ash lies so even because the damping is gentle. The one who tends does not strike. They sift. The red settles under the veil like sleep. In the morning, a slanted breath and a thin sliver are enough to wake it. That is a kind of great thrift. Thrift of charcoal, thrift of wood, thrift of strength. Small economies stack into a fund for other things. Tonight that fund buys time for slow chewing, for tool repair, for counting grain, for reading the river's skin. Tomorrow it may buy a longer walk, because the belly held its warmth from dusk. Another piece of root leaves the rim. The inner steam has stilled. The surface has tightened. The sweetness drops to a lower note. In the mouth the tongue finds evenness. Firm and tender do not swing wildly. A tooth is not ambushed by a sudden shard. A throat is not scratched raw. This sense of safety stays. In a world where night is long and beasts move beyond the edge, safety in mouth and belly is a gift. Freed from wrestling a raw knot of food, the mind has room for other work. This is when memory stitches the day's pieces. When a thought about tomorrow can flare and will not die at once from fatigue, the watcher's eyes sweep the hearth. Smoke is thin, even. The wind shifts little. Everything lies within the steady band. Their portion waits, not forgotten. The story of fire and food here is not about pots or clay. It's as simple as hot and cool, thin smoke and thick, sweet smell and sharp. From these small pairs a system grows. The system has a rhythm of sharing, a way of waiting for doneness, a rule that the weak are served first, a pause for cooling. With a system, a cooked meal becomes ground, not a rare event. You change hands and pass a share to the person beside you. Firelight draws a line along the nose. Inside that line is a quiet that warmth brings. Not brilliant, not showy, only enduring. The brain makes no footsteps. It does not perform by the fire. Yet as cooked meals become routine, as intake steadies, as the time and strain of chewing and digestion lessen, a large brain stops being a burden alone. It becomes an investment that pays. The returns are hours of longer thought. The ability to remember wind roots, the place of edible plants, the dry patch of ground. The way to sift ash so the ember lives. The way to portion so the circle rests easy. On the ground, tiny dots of fat sink into ash and darken. The server studies those marks to judge whether enough fat was used today and whether to favour roots tomorrow. A simple accounting takes place without numbers. There is only smell and trace. only sensation and habit. That accounting belongs to the fire. Without warmth, the marks would tell another tale. With warmth, they speak of a controlled transformation. The meal ends. Ash is spread thin. Tools go into the hide and hang in the dry place. Children sleep first, heads on a grown thigh. Elders breathe steadily. Watchers trade places and receive a low-breathing fire. In the chest, a small glow sits behind the breastbone. The coal does not need to be seen to be there. Tomorrow, the cooked meal will repeat. Not identical, but true enough. Each repetition draws a faint line on the long map of the body. On that map, the road for chewing loses its jagged teeth. The loops for the gut unwind a little. The path for the brain runs on farther. This is not to claim cooked food alone makes all things. It is to keep the careful voice. Energy data and eating habits sketch such a picture, and here, at the hearth, your body knows it in its own way. By the hearth's corner, a flint flake, darkened by heat, lies still. Tomorrow, and when hands are steadier from a warm meal, its edge will be dressed straighter. The link between supper and tool is very near. Fire does not only cook, it makes the conditions for better work by hand. Not this moment, but soon. Someone will set another piece of stone in a warmer zone and test whether the edge holds longer. That chapter will come. Tonight it is enough to note that the meal ran light. The day's budget widened, and in that budget there is room to try a little thing with stone. Night draws deeper. Water keeps a slow, low beat. Children sleep first. Elders lean on the earthen wall. The watch is changed again. You lie on your side, warmth still lives in the belly. The mouth is not dry, the jaw is not sore. Your eyes slip closed. In the smooth dark, memory keeps working. It gathers the sweetness of root, the richness of meat, the straw of seed, the clean ash. It files them in a quiet drawer. At dawn you will not struggle to recall how to set a root to the wind or how to peel when the hull is warm. The hands will find it by themselves. A light draught crosses. The hearth's rim brightens and settles. The watcher shifts half a body, shielding the ember with their own shape for a moment. Smoke does not blow into any face. The fire is calm. The meal is calm. The circle is calm. When a day is stitched with such warm, small stitches, danger still waits beyond. Yet the binding between people gains a loop. In a world of long nights and fierce beasts, such a binding is precious. It begins with a softened root and a slower chew. Near the end of night you wake halfway. There is no gnawing hunger, no twisting gut. There is only a light strength running the spine from nape to back. That feeling is a meal's mark. It promises a morning not dimmed by digestive fatigue. It opens a stretch of day to walk farther along the bank, to try a different bed of roots, to learn a new tone in the water. These promises make no sound. They live in the body. They are the quiet language of a creature fed the right way. As the sky pales, the last watcher wakes a span early. The ash is opened at the right spot. A thin, dry sliver is set on a slant. Her breath passes on a slant. The ember appears. Warmth returns. A new meal is coming. Fire's cycle continues. The tale of cooked food will repeat and repeat until lines on bones and teeth tell later people that something long changed toward an easier chew and a lighter gut. For now, the clearest truth is the sweetness lifting from the rim and the slow beat of chewing. From that, a day can begin with steadier hands, clearer eyes, and a mind holding a small idea ready to test bring the stone a little closer to the fire, so the cutting edge obeys the hand with less waste. Morning is thin with mist. A clean ash scent clings to your palms. The ground around the hearth has cooled, yet a light warmth still reaches the soles. When you stand, the body's not heavy as on raw food mornings. Shoulders move freely as the first step does not wobble. That lightness says last night's meal did its work. Energy went in gently, stayed long, and did not drag the body through a skirmish between hunger and sudden fullness. Along the water, the footprints from the night remain faint. The river mirrors a pale sky like stretched hide. The ear picks out a pebble rolling in the shallows. The eye catches tiny changes in flow. These details show themselves because the mind is not dragged by a struggling belly. When inside is quiet, outside comes into view. The cooked meal opens room for the senses to do their work well. It does not replace skill. It lets skill act at its full stretch. By noon, the hearth is called awake again. The dark, fine ash parts. A red eye peeks like a sleepy creature. A thin sliver is set at an angle. The breath slants. The ember brightens. Small at first, then higher. The waking is the same as yesterday, and it will be the same on many days to come. In that repetition, a system has taken shape. The watcher reads the smoke and knows wood wet from dry. The server turns the flat stone to suit the wind. The old choose the warmest place to sit. Children wait for cooled bites. No shouting is needed. Each motion is a stitch that binds today to yesterday and keeps life from coming apart. Another root sits at the rim. Sweetness rises again. A thin slice of meat rests at the edge where the heat is low. Seeds spill onto the flat stone. The familiarity of these moves is a treasure. The body loves what it can predict, especially in a world of surprise. Once a meal becomes a rhythm you can trust, the body stops bracing for each mouthful. The mind can step away from the bowl and tip toward other tasks. They look small dress, a stone edge, twist a sinew straight, pick out grit from the basket. Yet these small things make tomorrow less hard. After the midday meal, light tilts. On the earth small dry fat specks show. They scatter in a line that tells how much richness was used today. A glance tells the server whether to favour roots or meat tonight. This accounting is a memory of scents and marks. No numbers, only feel. The feeling is not random. It grows from repeated meals. Each repetition writes deeper into the body, until a quick look is enough and thought is spared. Freed from many tiny decisions, the mind can plan farther. Toward evening, an elder sets down a memory. No long speech, only a finger drawing a cove's curve in the ash. The fingertip stops and presses. That is where the ground is weak. The finger lifts and taps another point. That is where the water swirls. One more tap above. That is where roots sprout thick at the start of the rains. Children watch. Grown people watch. The band pins those marks in mind like a thread tucked in place. Cooked food has given this hour a strong back to carry that memory. If the belly were still wrestling, a point might be missed. A line would blur. When inside rests, outside settles into memory clear and sure. Night comes and the hearth brightens again. This time an old leaf is tied around a root. The thin cut is set in the right place. When it opens, it's soft. No one is surprised. This certainty feeds a deeper trust. It is a trust in tomorrow. If you know there will be warmth again tomorrow night, the body stops clutching. Hands turn to careful work. Eyes take joy in learning close. The mind keeps a corner for a new idea. In a world still crowded with threats, such a small trust is treasure. It is not hard like stone. It is a soft layer, and that softness keeps a band close. You sit still and hear a faint crack as the root answers the heat. Chewing slows as last night. The belly is lined well. Weariness does not show. In the glow, longer thoughts appear. They are not grand plans. They are plain, vital ideas. The day after tomorrow, go one more spit of land, because tonight there is strength. When the water smells different, leave the bank a little earlier. When the wind tastes cold, draw the hearth a little deeper under the wall. Such thoughts rise when the body is not dragged by hunger or pain. Cooking lets them sprout and live. Each warm meal is a brick in a long change inside the human frame. Teeth need not labour as before. Jaws strain less. Across many lives, the marks on bone and tooth will show a trend towards smaller forms. The gut, spared from slamming against raw fibre, may not need to be as long. Caution again. No single cause makes every change, yet the link through energy is real. Cooking draws more power from the same food, cuts chewing time, and eases the gut's load. When the price drops, the body can invest elsewhere. One of those places is the large brain. The brain so costly to run is no longer only a burden. With cooked food, its supply turns stable. With a stable supply, the brain can work longer without forcing the body to spend most of the day chewing. The estimate of more than 9 hours a day for an all-raw diet puts the picture in plain view. Cooking cuts most of that time. The hours saved become time to learn gesture, to memorise water paths and to tune tools, to practice hearing the wind. When learning grows, skill grows. When skill grows, the odds of living grow. With survival more secure, the whole system steadies. In that steadier system, traits like smaller teeth, trimmer guts, and larger brains have ground to appear. Children show these shifts most clearly. A child who eats warm and steady, who cries less at night and stumbles less by day, will stand firm sooner, will hold a thing, will read the sky. Each small step joins the others. Elders with warm meals ache less and remain one more season to teach. Memory crosses the fire. Life knowledge does not snap. This continuity is a gift of cooked food, not bright, not loud, but enduring. Night is deep. Beyond the bank, insects replace birds. The hearth settles to a low ring of coals. The watcher leans and breaks the wind. A flint flake sits at the rim of heat. It darkens, warms by degrees. No one speaks. No one needs to know at once what will come of it. There is only a simple instinct: warm stone stills the hand, and the edge dresses smoother. Tomorrow, when it is trimmed, the edge may hold a little longer. Such trials begin with the cooked meal. With warmth, 3 hours, and steady energy, ideas have room to test and compare. From one flake left longer at the rim will grow a longer road of using heat so materials obey the hand. Near the fire, the flat stone shines with heat. You lay your palm there for a beat, measuring warmth. This is the good place to warm seed. It is also the right place for a small stone, not too hot, not too cool. Such a simple feeling is the seed of new understanding. No one names it. No one explains it. Yet at first light, with the belly lined by a few warm bites, someone will bring out that flake, strike a testing blow, and listen to the fracture. If the crack is cleaner, if the surface parts more finely, if the edge chips less, that scrap of memory will be kept. On another night, another flake will lie a little longer by the heat. Seeds like that are sown evenly, sprout slowly, yet they sprout. On the earthen wall a thin dark plume has stained a line. It is the hearth's handprint. It is the band's calendar. From that line an elder knows the season when winds are due to turn. From that line the watcher knows whether the wood was wet or dry today. From that line the server recalls how many meals have passed. In that calendar, cooked meals mark the quiet days. Quiet days are the good ground where plain, effective ideas take hold. Some will belong to stone, some will belong to placing roots, some will belong to where people sit so every face can be read. Each small idea holds one piece of life. When the fire drops to its last red ring, ash falls thin, the ember sleeps. People lie down. Breathing is even. The small warmth in the chest remains. It rests like a coal, quiet yet sure. That coal is the meal's remainder in the body. It does not crowd thought. It steadies sleep. A sleep without hunger stabs, without gut cramps, without jaw ache. That sleep is the cooked meal's reward. In that sleep the brain keeps sorting what it learned. Today it learned the sound the water makes when the wind whirls. It learned again how to set a route to the wind. It learned that a warmed flake may obey the hand. Tomorrow, when fingers touch that flake, the mind will not be surprised. Before dawn the watcher parts the ash and breathes lightly. Heat returns, warmth returns. The first steps of the day lean on this calm. The cooked meal will repeat. Each repetition nudges the body toward endurance. Each repetition frees a small part of the mind to try something new. No rush, no forcing. Long roads are joined by such soft steps. When the sun lifts, the bank brightens. The flat stone dries quickly. The heat-dark flake is lifted from the rim. Your fingers feel warmth still there. One precise strike on the anvil stone. The sound is crisp. A thin shard falls, its edge bright like a hair of light. You turn it and find the face smoother. No name, no verdict. Only a place in the hide pouch and a mark in memory. Tonight another flake will be tried. From the cooked meal the story turns toward stone, toward heat, toward edges that last. Before leaving the hearth you look around. Elders rub their hands, a child yawns and smiles in sleep. The watch changes again, eyes wet with mist. In that quiet moment you understand how a cooked meal has shifted so much. It changes how the body spends its strength. It changes how the mind spends its hours. It bends the rhythm of a day. Ahead it opens a new door. Beyond that door, heat is not only for food, it is a key for stone. From that key a long chain of craft will rise. That is the next piece. For now sit another heartbeat by the warmth. Breathe the clean ash. Hear the far water. Lasting fullness settles across the body. The small coal behind the breastbone stays. From that ember a day will open with steadier hands, with a clearer gaze. With one small idea ready to try, I bring the stone a little nearer to the heat so the edge obeys better. Then when night comes, the band will gather again, chew slowly, share their portions, teach by gesture, and write another line in the memory of fire. From this gentle supper, the long path of change steps forward again, sure and firm. In the low light you can see that path run on, toward bright edges, toward durable tools, toward long nights with quiet human voices, easy as the riverbank. The flint changes colour very slowly under the heat. A dark stain spreads like tea seeping into stone. When a small crack sounds, a shard slips from the core, thin and bright, catching firelight like a drop of ice. The whole circle goes quiet. Only breath and the sound of fire taking the wood remain. At the dry bank you kneel and set your hand on the cool ground. Old pebbles lie among bits of bark. Once your eyes adjust, you can tell which stones are good. Not every piece obeys. Some are hollowed inside, some already cracked. You turn a stone in your palm, looking for a smooth face, an even grain. You bring it to your ear and tap it lightly with another. The reply, dull or crisp, tells you how it is within. When the sound is crisp, the palm also feels a tightness, like a bowstring pulled to the right drawer. The fire is not high today, only a ring of warmth, thin smoke, pale grey. The watcher sits on the lee side of the wind. Their skin carries the clean scent of ash and the dry wood of many seasons. There are no instruments. Heat is read by colour, by smell, by the way smoke stands or leans. When smoke is white and thick, the wood is still wet. When it is thin and clear, the heat is right for a slow, long job. They flip small sticks, pull open a gap, set a few little props, then sift a fine bed of warm ash over them. That is the layer between fire and stone. Too direct and the stone shocks. Too cool and the stone does not change. You place the chosen stone on that bed. One long breath. The surface darkens only a little. A damp earth smell lifts. It is the trapped moisture leaving as the heat draws through. Do not hurry. The stone must be dried before it will listen. The watcher glances at you and nods. Their hand feathers a small draught so the fire crawls to one side and the heat does not pound one spot. In these conditions, drying can take a while, slow is right. A crack that comes too soon spoils the day. This story, I've told her with eyes, hands and smells, stays close to what the traces allow. At a place called Evron, stone tools found decades ago were reanalyzed with spectroscopic methods and algorithms. The results show they had seen very high heat, some up to about 600 degrees. We did not watch them lay stone to warmth. We didn't hear the hearth sing, but the mark in the material does not lie. Edges part differently. Faces change. Colour shifts. Particles inside reline under heat. Elsewhere, when Silkrete was kept at a high temperature for hours, the flakes that came after were sharper and more even, and the fracture lines easier to guide. And in a cave called Caveman, signs of controlled heat in toolmaking appear at a very distant time. Such scraps of proof are bright points on a night map. They let us follow without inventing more. The watcher lifts a coal and turns it over. They smell the new scent rising off the stone's face. If there is still damp, wait. When the smell goes dry with a faint tar of bark, the stone has passed that first drying. With a stick you nudge it a little nearer to the warm source. A thin ash veil still lies under it, like a blanket between a back and cold earth. In the glow the face begins to change, not flashy. Only a small drift from grey toward brown. When the surface goes slightly lustrous, when a faint misty line appears along the edge, that is the sign the heat is entering at the right depth. Fire needs someone who can listen. They watch coals shift from light red to dark red. They watch the tremble of light on stone. They hear wood tick and know which stick is rotten inside. In the early days, everything is guessing. Over many seasons, these marks become a language. The watcher does not name them. They simply act from the memory of skin and eye. Nothing here is magic. It is repetition long enough for the senses to learn, and that learning is what looks like a strange skill. You turn the stone a quarter turn. It is not hard, just a stick and a fulcrum. Warmth washes your wrist. You step back half a pace and breathe slow. The fire breathes steadily. After a while, the watcher gives a small nod. Time to lift the first stone out. Do not drop it in water. Coming from warmth, stone will split if shocked. The watcher drags a scoop of warm ash across and blankets the stone as if with fine sand. This is the banking. Bank so the heat lets go slowly. Bank so inside and outside fall together. Bank so the stone settles like a tamed animal, no longer startled by change. While you wait, another stone goes in. The hearth has its rhythm dry, set in, hold, turn, bank. Each motion is as gentle as lifting a sleeping child. The circle speaks with eyes. When the smoke thins and clears, the watcher knows a stone can go deeper. When the wind shifts without warning, one body shields, one arm lowers the flame. No panic, no haste. Every mistake here costs a day's tools ruined, a hunt lost, a longer, colder night. There are days the heat is set wrong. The stone pops, shards fly, edges go bad. The face turns dull. There are days the drawing falls short. A crack runs through the core and only shows when you strike. Those failures also leave marks in the mind. After a few seasons, the watcher only has to look at smoke to know whether to damp or feed. They measure heat by wood smell, by coal's colour, by whether the skin on the back of the hand stings or warms. Named aloud, these gauges sound simple. In the doing, they take years. When the banking's long enough, you lift the stone and set it on the anvil stone. One blow, straight and clean. The sound is crisp. A thin flake slides down onto the back of your hand. Its edge shines like a hair of light. You turn it and test. The sharpness is not the same as a cold broken piece. A kind of willingness appears. You can choose where to place the next blow and have a fair guess how the fracture will run. Not every time, but more often. That is the point of letting stone meet warmth first. It makes the stone soft in the way material understands, not in the way a hand does. The flakes chip less and break less ugly. Tools grow even and lasting. This is where we should be clear. The temperatures, the lengths, the ways of laying stone are not made up. At Evron, artifacts show heat up to about 600 degrees. Elsewhere, silkrete kept around 350 degrees for hours yields finer, more controllable fracture. And at Keesum, marks of controlled heat for toolmaking appear at a far-off point in time. These are conclusions drawn from material, from colour and microstructure, not from a spuntail. We tell it in images so a reader can feel the rhythm of hands and flame, but we do not step beyond what evidence allows. The watcher adjusts the hearth. They pull some coals to the rim, sift a thin ash layer, and set a few pre-dried stones in the gentle zone. There are 2 rooms here, a deep hot zone for the change, and a mild warm zone for the hold. From a distance, the hearth looks like a heart with 2 chambers, taking in and letting out in time. You sit by the mild zone and listen to the stone breathe, to your own breath slowing. In the glow, the dry wood scent spreads. The ear catches a very faint tick, not a fracture, only a stretched place easing. You touch the stone lightly. It does not scald, it is warm. This is the right hour to bank longer. The watcher adds ash, lays a thin sheet of dry leaves, slides the piece aside and makes space for the newly dried stone to go deeper. The hearth shifts like a school of fish turning in a river. Quick and without chaos. You recall striking stone before you knew to use warmth. Every blow was a prayer. Some days a good flake. Some days only bad edges. The hand uncertain. The fracture stubborn. Since learning to let stone hear heat first, less depends on luck. Not because the hand leapt in skill, but because the material changed its answer. From that change, a spare time appears time to dress an edge, to reface a tired blade, to braid one more strand of sinew. Time to look out toward the mountain line and measure a day's walk. The gain from a sharper flake runs on into things that did not seem related. Another flake comes free, or its edge is fine. You turn it and try it against a dry sinew. The edge runs the whole cut and the strand parts without a jerk. That smoothness pleases the hand. When the hand is pleased, the mind rests. When the mind rests, the hearth endures. When the hearth endures, night is gentle. These threads join, from a cutting edge to sleep. Near noon, the watcher lowers the hearth a notch to keep the banked stones warm. The smoke deepens a shade, from thin grey to darker. The wood smell shifts, a bit more astringent. They know the fuel is near spent. A new bundle is drawn in and set at the rim so heat can spread slowly. No one dumps the whole armload. Stone does not need shock. Everything needs evenness. This knowledge is written nowhere. It lives in failed days, in split cores, in chipped flakes, in hunts that ended with empty hands. You line finished edges on a square of hide, cushioned with dry leaves, keeping order. There are no letters, but there is sequence. A piece for cutting, a piece for scraping, a piece for scoring, a piece for hollowing. Each flake has its own voice. On another day, when a fix is needed, you will remember how long this one was banked, where in the hearth it lay, what sound it made when it broke. Memory needs no words here. It is smell, shape, the feel of fingertips. For a moment you look up. There is a fine ash line on the watcher's face. It is the mark of someone who has sat in the warm place many seasons. At their eye corners are the creases of short nights spent guarding a fire from rain. They do not speak much. They nod or shake their head. The whole circle understands. In the middle, stone and fire talk in their own way. One side slowly gives up its old shape. The other patiently pours heat in and draws it back. From that talk, bright edges are born. Let the core point be said once more. What we describe is a telling that clings to evidence. Everyone shows the sign of high heat. Experiments with stones like silkreach show that when held at a high band for hours, flakes break fair and answer the hand. KSM records marks of heat held on purpose for craft at a very distant date. Not every place did the same. Not every band knew this well. But where there are marks, we can say fire was not only for cooking and warmth. It was called on to change material, to teach stone to listen to the hand. The hearth trembles when a hollowed stick collapses in the ash. The watcher feeds another, shifts the ember to the left. You test the piece just banked. You run its edge along green bark. It bites like a small knife. Satisfaction moves under the skin. Here is why better edges open new paths. With a keen edge, hides scrape clean and shelter cloth dries faster. With a smooth edge, sinew braids even and cords snap less. With obedient tools, journeys can run longer. Sleeping places keep warmer. And when night falls, the circle has more to tell around the red. You tuck the flake into the hide roll. The fire slows. Outside, a cool wind. On the quiet base, a long thought opens, running from hearth to shelter to trail to the voices by the glow. The thought will be told more clearly later. For now, the work is to keep the banked stones warm, to listen for the break of the next flake, and to let the fire keep teaching stone how to answer. Afternoon turns honey-coloured. The hearth breathes lightly. The rings of red coal blink like fishes' eyes in shallow water. A thin ash cover lies over a few stones in the bank. On the flat patch of earth, the newly fallen flakes shine quietly like sunlit scales. No one has to say it today belongs to stone. Such days are rare. The wind is fair. The wood is dry. Bellies were warmed at noon. This is the hour for patience. You bend over the morning's basket of stone. Each piece has been dried in the gentle zone. The damp has lifted. You roll them in your hands, looking for even grain, a smooth face. The old rule still holds tap lightly. Listen. A dull note means an empty core. A crisp note means solid. One piece shows a dark vein running through. It is a line left by water. Such lines love to crack under heat. You set it aside for another use. Not every stone deserves the deep warmth. Wood is limited. So is time. The watcher tilts their head to read the smoke. Now the plume stands upright, pale grey, with the very clean scent of dry wood. They open a space to reveal the hearth's dark red heart. With a stick you guide the dried stone down near the deep hot zone. It rests on a bed of fine ash, not touching the coals. A thin scatter of dry leaves goes across the face, not to bank, but to spread the flow. When the leaves curl and vanish, the stone's surface takes a faint gloss, as if someone wiped water across it. Time moves slowly. Small signs tell what only the accustomed see. The red glows but does not glare. The stone's face drifts from grey to brown to a shade hard to name. Neither red nor black, only a very thin dim sheen like mist. When that sheen appears, the watcher raises a hand. You turn half around, draw it out a little, push it back. Each touch as gentle as a fingertip against a child's eyelid. One careless beat would spoil the piece. At the rim of the hearth, a stone is ready to bank. The watcher drags ash over and covers it with a thin blanket. Ash keeps warmth. Ash slows the fall. Ash helps inside and outside walk in step. No one uses water. No one lifts stone into the wind. A stone just out of heat is like a body after a long run. It needs to catch its breath, settle its pulse, be still. You take the piece banked earlier and set it on the anvil stone. The anvil is a firm, steady block, as high as a fist. Set the angle right. One straight, decisive blow. The sound is clean as a drop of rain on the lip of an empty jar. A thin flake falls into your hand. The edge is bright, even without saw teeth. You change hands and try it on a strip of soaked hide. The edge runs true. The cut opens gently. No snatch. No torn margin. This is what stone feels like after it has heard fire. You remember the time before this step. Every strike begged luck. Some days a good flake, some days only bent edges, hands sore, stone dust in the eyes. The next day's walk delayed by a dull knife. Since learning the right zone of warmth, the hand leans less on chance. The material answers otherwise. Blows can be forecast. Fractures grow less stubborn. No one told you this. It lies in the flakes themselves. You hold a new one and see it is thin and even from base to edge. The face as smooth as a grain polished long. That is the mark of heat gone through. Another flake is tried on wet high. You scrape lightly. The thin crust lifts like dry mud breaking from a heel. The skin is flatter, less scored. The cover will dry faster. When rains come, cold will not sit in the bone so long. A small change at the edge runs outward to sleeping, standing, moving. The thread that ties hearth to home appears in such details. The watcher passes a hand across the coals. They do not touch, only read with the skin of the back of the hand. The warmth there is like the breath of a great beast at rest. If it bites, fuel is too high, they lower it. If it only warms, they add a few dry twigs. There is no yardstick, no counting. After a few seasons, the results grow consistent. This matches the marks that diggers have read in the material. At Evron, old tools re-examined with thermal eyes show they had reached very high bands, some to about 600 degrees. No one stands there now to narrate the steps, but the stone has spoken. In other trials, when silkcrete is held around 350 degrees for hours, the flakes that follow answer better and their paths are easier to steer. And at Kesem, the sign of heat kept on purpose for craft sits at a far time. These numbers are faint lines on the night's map. Follow them, and a hand today can picture, to the right degree, what a hand long ago did. You keep the cycle going dry, set in, hold, turn, bank, strike, check the edge. Simple steps, each hiding traps. Rush once and hairline cracks run across the face. Forget to bank and a flake seems fine at first, but its edge crumbles in use. Bank too heavy and the cool is too slow. The flake comes soft and the edge will not bite. Each error has a price. It might be a cord that snaps while you braid. It might be a bad cut that tears a hide. It might be a spear point that will not trim true. The final price is a harder day's march and a longer night of cold. You keep a natural ledger in your head. The first stone today dried longer because the wind was damp. The second went deeper because the hearth's heart burned darker. The third was banked thin because the ash was already thick. You have no book, but the mind has a drawer for stone, the smell of old wood, the colour of smoke, the sound of fracture. Those gather into memory. Tomorrow, when you pick the right piece, your hand will find the right warm zone as if someone had set a small mark there ahead of time. Beside you, an elder takes from a hide pouch a piece worn dull. It has travelled many seasons. The edge is spent, the face dim. You slide it into the gentle zone. Not deep, only to dry the face through. Then onto the anvil for a few light taps to lift the tired skin. When the old layer falls, the inner lines show. You bank again, giving it a chance to be young. Stone needs care, too. New breaks are not always needed. Knowing how to reuse saves wood and strength. Toward dusk, the hearth changes pace. The last stones of the day go into bank. You use the time to check the whole roll of edges. The scoring flake you try on thick sinew. The cutting flake on a strip of dried meat. The scraper on wet hide. Each flake has a task. You mark them by where you place them on the leaf-lined hide. Order is another kind of memory. On the trail, or when you unroll the hide, one glance tells you which to take. This neatness comes from good edges. Good edges come from right fire. Right fire comes from eyes and nose trained long. You look to the horizon. A dark band of violet touches the far wood. High above, the hearth smoke is so thin it looks like a single hair tied to the sky. No shouting, no quarrel, only fire-eating wood and flakes answering the hammer. In that sound, a quiet satisfaction travels into the bones. Not excitement, only warm steadiness, as when a hide pulls taut, sinew lies smooth, stakes stand straight, everything fits. You think of tomorrow. With this roll of keen flakes, a cover will cut clean, cords will braid faster, a haft will shave to round more evenly. The journey will not be snagged by small hard tasks. The hours saved can go to reading the way through a gravel bar, to marking where the water's smell changes, to learning the wind. They can return to the hearth, to the circle at night, sharing and telling by hand about mould stains on stone and the smoke of different woods. Good edges make room for such calm. A cold gust slides in from the water. The watcher's body steps between wind and fire and banks the ash over the warm zone. You push a stone out of the deep heat in time, just before a faint tick warns of trouble. The ear has learned. The hand has learned its reflex. The hearth is not a thing to be managed by force. It only needs people who understand. In that blink you see why a place like Kesem bears the sign of keeping heat on purpose for craft. Heat-keeping is a kind of mind. It does not need words. It is a chain of small choices across hours, a day, a season. It is the work of the watcher, the striker, the wood-gatherer, the wind-shield. It is how the band divides who reads the smoke, who measures the warmth, who orders the flakes. Dark gathers. You fold the flake bundle into its hide and tie it tight. The bank stones are sifted with a thin ash cover. The hearth settles to a low ring of coals. The watcher sits still, eyes on the small glow as if listening to a heart. You sit opposite, hands on your knees, feeling a stream of warmth travel up the wrist into the chest. In that warmth is an idea as firm as stone durable. Keen tools will pull home closer, stretch the road farther within reach, and draw voices nearer to the red light. That is for the next stretch. Tonight, let the heat sink into the skin. Let the clean ash smell rest in the hair. Let the breath of hearth and people fall into the same rhythm. And let the stones sleep in ash until dawn. Night drops like a vast hide. The hearth keeps breathing. In the circle of light, the fallen flakes lie still, edges catching light like fish scales under a young moon. Everything settles. Only the tiny snaps of wood, the wind threading the grass, and the clean ash smell in hair remain. You tie the pouch and wedge the mouth with a damp sinew so it will not loosen, then lean your back against a warm stone. At the rim, the watcher drags ash over the heart of the hearth. The heat steps down. The fire goes into its own sleep. Early, dew beads the leaves, the cool brushes your wrist like a call to rise. You open the pouch, lay out the leaf-lined hide and set the flakes in the order your memory marked scoring pieces to the left. Cutting pieces in the middle, scrapers to the right. Each flake goes with its own sinew wrap, its own bit of haft. Before mounting a blade, you split the end of a wood shaft with a thin flake. The split is shallow, just deep enough to seat the blade. The split is bound with soaked sinew. Each wrap is pressed down tight. Sweat from your palm wets the fibre so it will glue itself as it dries. There is no resin, no glue pot, but dried sinew, dried hide. Well-cured grass can hold a blade in its place. You test the new knife on a branch. The bark peels smooth. The sound of fibres parting is like cloth pulled from a hand. The haft slims and rounds to plan. Another edge goes on for a scoring point. You take it to a wet hide stretched on a stake. The cut runs straight. The margin does not fuzz. The cover will meet clean and leak less wind. A scraper skates the surface and a thin bloom lifts off like mist from water at first sun. Small jobs go quicker. Spare time opens like a thin sky behind thick trees. Tasks for the trail are shared. A deft and narrow-shouldered person ties up shoes. A broad back braids rope. An elder inspects an old flake, lifts the tired face with a few light taps, warms it in the gentle zone, and sets it to dry. Children gather dry twigs and stack them. Each has a job. Each job nests into the next like links of a chain. A quiet confidence grows from this even rhythm. It comes from keen edges, from right hearth, from a circle that shares. Today's path follows the dark green water. Round stones tire the ankles, but a handstaff eases the load. At a bend, the grass mats thick. With your cutting flake, you open a narrow way. The grass lies down not because it is torn, but because it is cleanly cut. A few steps on there is a stand of reeds chest high. The scoring point leads, the cutter follows. The stalks fall the right way and do not whip the face of the person behind. The path opens fast and calm. No more waiting while a dull edge fights tough stems. Eyes can look farther. Ears can hear the water change ahead. When space opens evenly like this, less strength is thrown away in small silent quarrels with hard little things. On the stone bar, grit scuffing under heel reminds you balance matters. You stop to tighten the half binding. The sinew has dried another notch and needs pressing home. One push, two. The strand hugs the wood and holds the flake the way an arm circles a shoulder. You look up. The The sky is a clearer blue, clouds thin. The tool sits in the hand like a part of your skin. A new way of moving appears in your stride, less forced, less at the mercy of luck, fewer needless halts. You can feel a long road within reach, not because the legs grew stronger overnight, but because last night the edge learned to obey. At noon the band stops under a black rock that faces the sun. The shade is mild, the old cover comes down and is spread. You lift a scraper and clean the face of a hide you will not need tonight. A few passes and it is done. Beside you someone uses a scoring flake to divide and knot sinew. An elder takes a once dull piece, freshly warmed, and skins a stick for a spare haft. There is very little noise. When there is, it is the sound of edge against hard matter. Each sound is short and clear. The surface that follows is smooth and even. Such marks add up to a quiet noon and a breath let out of the chest. Back on the move. The wind turns. The water smells slightly sharp. You know this scent algae ripped off stone in shallows. Such places run slick. With a glance you warn the person behind. No words. These small signals are learned at the hearth, where hands speak more than mouths. Not a pact. Not written law. Only the way a long-living band learns together and keeps what works in flesh. By evening the clouds gather like sheep wool bunching to one side. The air thickens. Rain may come early. A dry niche appears and the band stops. Making the sleeping place goes like water gliding over stone. Stakes are shaved in a few breaths. Holes are cleanly cut with a point. Lashings sling over stakes and hold because cords are even and stake edges do not fray them. The cover pulls tight, edges pin with tidy pegs. The whole motion is so smooth that when the first drops fall, the roof is standing. Anyone who has slept through a storm under a cover knows the difference between a clean-cut edge and a ragged one. Rain finds loose fibres to creep through. Wind bites the fringes to tear. Sharp edges remove both. In the niche the small hearth is made again. Fire rises from a bird's nest of dry tinder kept in a pouch since morning. Old ash is sifted in so the place smells familiar. The first smoke lifts white, then thins and clears. The fire settles like a mild creature in its proper spot. The pieces still damp from morning are warmed at the gentle rim. None are put deep. Supper first. Drying second. Stone comes after. That order keeps the hearth standing through many nights. The meal is simple. Slices of root cut at noon slide into hot ash and are covered thin, then lifted when the heat runs through. Thin meat strips, sliced with the freshly dressed flake, pass over the flame quickly. A sweet scent rises. Jaws do not rasp. The throat swallows easily. Energy pours into bodies like rain led down channels, not flooding the ground. Elders eat a little longer, but not to fatigue. Children do not chew until their eyes blur. These things were said at the river hearth. Here you see another branch of the long line that ties keen edges to sound sleep. After supper the ring of fire slows. The watcher lowers it to its sleeping beat. A few stones are slipped into the gentle zone to bank overnight. Not deep. Just enough for morning strikes. Eyes red coals turning from bright to dark red. The nose notes the last wood smell. Ears hear the wind at the cave mouth. Together the signs make a picture. You sit by the glow with a new flake in hand and do not strike again. You lay it on your thigh and feel the cool of stone that has just been warm. For a breath it is like laying a palm on a river pebble at noon when the water runs clear and the banks are empty. In this low light, something ripens that daylight rarely grows. Not food, stories. There are no long speeches, no calls. Only small waits and lifts, fingers pointing to mould streaks on stone, to burn on bark, to black seed caught in ash. Each trace is a short line. Each line a piece of the day. Stay long enough by fire and you learn that speaking loud does not make warmth. What does is a way of sitting close and breathing even. In that breath the wish to name more things begins. Not all at once. It comes like thin smoke coming and going, leaving a smell on hair and skin. Someone points at a strange red in a coal. Someone presses a hand to the chest, taps a silent drum, then lays the finger on the fire's mouth. Such signs string together and later may lay the pale ground for shaped sounds. We do not push that part here. We only note that fire makes a place where they sprout. Deep night. Rain drums evenly on the cover. The hearth sits snug in the niche. You lie on your side, eyes just open enough to see the faintest red across the coals. New edges sleep in the pouch, tucked against your calf so they will not be lost. The air at the cave mouth is no longer cold like outside. It has passed through warm ash and changed scent and temper. It goes into the lungs mild. In that breathing you feel a thing. Clearly stone has heard fire, hands have heard stone, the hearth has heard wind. When all three hear each other, the band sleeps, and tomorrow's road grows longer without fear. Morning, the rain lets up. The sky is washed. The ground steams in a milk-thin haze. You open the pouch, take a banked flake, and set it on the anvil. One blow, the sound is clean, the edge bright as a surgeon's line across night cloud. You try it on wet bark. It still bites clean, does not drag. That is the sign of a right bank. Do not rush to make more. Enough for a day. The rest waits for evening. Life does not need to run. It needs to flow. When you tidy the hearth, ash is swept to the back of the niche and spread thin as a marker. Tomorrow, by ash and smell, you will know where the old fire lay. Not to save a seat, but to know the place that is used to you and where the wind is kind. Such marks dot the earth camp by camp. On the skin's map they are small stars pointing the way back. On the way out a flock of small birds lift like soft arrows. At the bank low water shows streaks on stone from where fire worked over many seasons. Those dark bands are letters that need no reading. They tell of days someone sat and watched, days someone struck and banked, nights someone slept with one ear on the dying coal. Far off, places later given names carry such marks too. In some, stone says it met very high warmth. In some, silkrete says it was held at a moderate heat for hours to break fair. In some, inside caves, stone says heat was kept on purpose for craft at a far time. Such things are the testimony of material, not what our hearts prefer to hear. Say that much and stop. The rest is the work of today's eyes and hands. You walk on, across pebbles to a smooth strip of ground where grass is low and the earth is faintly damp. A good place for the next night. Thinking that, your hand touches the pouch of flakes, not to count how many are left, only a gesture like touching your own tongue to feel the mouth's warmth. This calm does not come from far dreams. It comes from things you can hold an edge that carries a cut all the way, a sinew that does not snap, a stake that does not fray the cord, a cover that does not tear, a fire that does not die. All are the result of a long afternoon when stone learned the fire and people learned the smoke. You stop at the water's edge and drink a palmful. Coolness runs in and presses the chest like a gentle hand. On the tongue a faint smoke lingers. On the knee a dusting of ash lies like chalk. These small signs are threads tying today to last night's hearth, and to tonight's. The thread runs through many places. It ties keen edges to a warm home to longer steps to the circle that sits close when dark comes. In that circle people point to ash and coal and flakes and smoke stains to tell by hand a story without an end. The story of fire teaching stone to listen, and stone answering with edges that obey the hand. When the sun leans, you turn toward the new camp. People have begun to cut a shallow trench to lead rain away. Stakes are done. The hide edge is scored with the grain. Cords are braided 3-ply. The new hearth waits for a nest of dry tinder. Everything runs like one current. No one calls orders. No one needs to push the pace. Work finds its right place. You set down the pouch, sit at the hearth, and listen to the wind to place the flame. It rises very gently. The gold hooks on the roof's rim. Across faces a red band passes and rests. You understand the story will branch into larger roads now. Durable. Sharp tools do not stop at a faster cord or a cleaner hide. They open a way of life. Roofs stand firmer. Sleeping places keep warmer. Roads run farther without more cost. The circle sits closer when night arrives. Between those bodies, hand signs and breath rhythms will take on clearer meaning, not by chance. Warmth keeps them near enough for eyes to pass words and hands to speak for mouths. From there more will change. But tonight, as on all nights in this story, is off. The hearth asks only this: sit close. Breathe in slow, breathe out even. Listen to the tiny breaks of coal under ash, and let the stones in the pouch sleep until a very thin violet line shows at the forest's edge. When it does, you will rise and strike and bank and cut and walk a little farther on the road opening ahead. Faces brighten in patches, cheeks glitter, then sink into dark. Voices are low like a stream under a night canopy, easier to hear as the darkness thickens. In the middle a steady warm ring breathes like a mild creature. The hearth has grown through many seasons. From it, houses grow, nights lengthen, society shifts in quiet ways. Sharp tools and cooked food do more than ease the hand. They draw a place to return to sit close, and to teach what is hard to say by hand. The tent frame is pegged firm. On a gentle slope at the forest's edge, posts are dry trunks shaved smooth. Thick hides are stretched tight. Edges are pinned with round wooden pegs. Far out on the open plain there are great bone houses in colder lands. Frames are the long bones of giant animals, roofs are hides stitched with skill, house or tent. The hearth is always at the centre. The firebed is ringed by stones as high as a fist. Old ash is sifted thin as a base so the remaining warmth clings to a familiar spot. Dry wood is sorted into bundles by size. Tinder lives in a hide pouch, always dry like summer sand. Firewatch begins at dusk. Everyone knows their hour. No loud call, only a light touch on a shoulder, a glance. The person on watch parts the hearth into two. One side bright for cooking, one side gentle for drying, banking and keeping. When the wind shifts, their body is the shield so sparks do not strike the roof. When a new flame rises, they dust a thin ring of ash so embers do not cross the stones. A water gourd sits near, a pouch of sand rests at hand. Nothing is left where darkness hides it. Safety rules are simple as breath. Children do not step past the white marker stone. Long hair is tied. Things that catch fire easily do not sit close. When leaving, the watcher rakes the coals flat, then draws a light ash blanket over them, letting the hearth sleep a shallow sleep before a deep night. Fire is the gathering point. When supper is ready, small shares go from hand to hand. No grabbing, no counting. Elders first, children get the soft. The watcher smiles, takes a last bite, then puts back the rest if there is any. When hands are less hungry, work opens quietly. Someone braids a cord, someone scrapes a hide, someone dresses an edge that has gone dull. Hands move in even beats like breathing. The sound of edge on hard matter is tidy. No harsh rasp, no wrestling. The hearth lets these tasks flow like a slow current, without jolts. Firelight stretches the half of day that used to be solid black. Before, when night came, life closed, only wind and animals passing by. Now there are steady extra hours, enough to mount a blade, enough to braid a cord, enough to hem a hide edge. Small acts stack like stones in a footing. Today a blade, tomorrow a cord, next week a windtight cover. Each evening the store grows a little. When cold wind drops, those things fall into place like teeth in a good comb. Smoke helps to guard, not choking smoke. A thin ring that rides the wind slips past the door and drifts to the field's edge. The watcher knows which wood thickens smoke and which makes a clear flame. They keep a few dry punky twigs so that one pinches enough to raise the veil. Smoke drives insects away. Its smell makes low eyes in grass hesitate. Together with the flicker on trunks, the hearth builds a fence without rope or stakes. Each time wood is set on, the watcher listens. One tongue of flame too high and they press it down. Too much light calls wind. Too little light robs ease. Holding the middle is a skill, like holding a blade straight. Outside, in the dim, several torches wait for need. No one runs into night with a torch for play. A torch is lit only to reach the water's edge or to see a large shadow before a scouting animal. Then one person at the hearth lifts the flame by one beat. Another stands off to throw a long shadow across the ground. Most of the time the fire keeps to a steady breath. The hearth's calm spreads into people. Bodies lower their pace. Minds leave fretful guard and return to repeated careful motions. In weak light hands still work while eyes grow less sharp. Now sound and beat matter. The cord braider murmurs a count so the pattern does not tangle. The edge dresser hums a short tone at each pass. A mother shows a child which way to twist by rounding lips then closing them, making a short easy sound to copy. Night grows a small language of the ring. In light that hides gesture, mouth and throat lend beats in place of hands. This is not a claim about the origin of speech. It is a grounded thought. The warm hearth gives ground where words can sprout. Fire's rhythm, breath, the circle, and relative safety make a base to test and repeat sounds so they keep shape until morning. When the wind turns, the door flap is dropped lower. The watcher leaves a smoke path, not wide, not narrow. They read the smoke through the gap. If it clings to the roof, they lift the flap with a prop. If it pours in, they lower it and lay a big log crosswise so the flame does not leap. By the hearth a flat stone warms newly shaved steak tips. Mild heat dries and hardens the skin of wood. Nearby a damp hide is spread to receive fresh scrapings. Each thing has a place, like low notes in a slow song. Portioning is the discipline of the ring. No one takes more than their share. The day's outer ring hunter does not claim the larger cut by right. The watcher who missed sleep does not ask extra. Each day one person may take a little more if age or illness has lowered their strength. That right rotates, in the order of the watches. Quiet fairness keeps hearts near. No other tie is needed beyond the sense that each is seen and heard. The hearth is where eyes touch without making anyone draw in. Children learn here. Ears first, eyes after. Small hands hold sinew and try a twist. Slip, then twist again. No one shouts. A big hand rests on the small hand, so both feel one beat. Then it lifts. Next time the child teaches a friend by hand. Learning runs in a circle as fire runs in a hearth. No jump, no break. Each night a skill is repeated a few times. Enough to keep, not enough to tire. In the morning the skill lies quiet in the hand, ready. As night deepens, the watcher lets the hearth down to sleep. Coals are drawn to one side. A thin ash cover goes over so the fire keeps breath till dawn. That ash is a blanket, so one light nudge brings back red in the morning. Big wood rests at the rim, dry. Small sticks are tied in bundles and placed a forearm from the fire so they do not catch by accident. The windward skirt of the tent is weighted with stone so the warmth does not run out on a sudden gust. The gap from hearth to bed is far enough that sparks do not touch skin, near enough that warmth touches the spine like a gentle hand. Outside, night has eyes. At times a thin sweep of gold crosses a trunk, stops on a tuft of grass, then goes dark as the fuel settles. Each sweep tells other creatures that people wake here, with warmth, smoke, the smell of ash and hot fat. These do not only repel, they say this is the brief ground of a band that can coordinate, that has a circle, a watcher, rules. A cautious animal chooses another way. A bold one slows. That slowness is enough time for the watcher to hear and lift the flame a notch, or to light a torch so a long shadow runs to the edge. Night grows longer but not heavy. There is time to mend a pouch mouth, to braid half a cord, to dress an old edge. When hands stop and eyes close, a small crack still sounds in the coal like a drop on dry leaf. Warmth holds the ribs. Clean smoke lies on hair. Night used to be a cold wall. Now it is a door left ajar. Inside is time for things that only happen in safety. Mending, teaching, tracing paths, telling the afternoon rain with fingers. The hearth gives memory shape. From that, tomorrow's steps stray less. At times the ring of fire becomes a ring of telling. Not long words, a chain of plain signs. One person points to a black scorch on a log to recall the last wind shift. Another touches a notch on the anvil stone to speak of a rhythm learned. An elder lays 2 fingers on the throat and presses down lightly on the outbreath so children hear the hum. These are not lectures. They are a stream through the night, feeding roots for the day. If there is a place warm enough for words to sprout, it is here, in low light, among even breaths, beside a hearth that breathes even. At the lowest glow, the last watcher lays a pinch of ash on the coal cap, like soothing a child to deep sleep. They set 2 small bundles of fuel where a morning hand can reach without searching in the dark. They look around the ring, pick scraps, reset the stone rim and rake a little sand over a place where flame ran. The circle is clean like a bowl washed after the meal. The hearth is a kept thing and is never left dirty through the night. These small habits keep the home safe without raised voices. When all is quiet, the watcher sits back, eyes closed, ears still hearing, nose still reading, as the hearth still breathes. Night slides on. Dew gathers on the roof, grows heavy, and falls at the eaves in a far chain of taps. Inside, sleep moves through people like a herd of soft shadows. Everyone has a share, everyone has warmth. The circle keeps time like an exposed heart. Inside it, the group society has shape and habit and a soft language that grows. When the first violet edge appears at the forest rim, one nudge brings back the red. A new day opens. Night is not erased. What night just made remains in hands and eyes, in how people call by touch, in how morning hoarseness warms fast because the mouth had practiced last night. That morning, before stepping out, you look at the stone ring, thin ash marks, neat coals, a quiet centre. The hearth does not only give light, it keeps a base beat. That beat calls people near, lets food be shared without dispute, lets hands work without rush. lets knowledge pass by the shortest soft road. From that beat houses stand firmer, nights grow kind, society holds. You lift the hide edge and step out. On damp ground, last night's footprints have faded. Only a faint line of ash remains like a breath. The circle, though just banked, stays in the mind, in the chest, in the knees, ready to appear when the sun leans west and the hearth calls people back to sit close. That evening a cold wind rises from the valley with the smell of wet stone. You sit angled to the hearth and guide a stick lightly, keeping the gold flame to a steady breath. Warmth touches chin and back of hand, draws back, then returns, like small waves on dark sand. The circle is closed. Backs are loose. The leather basket is open with steaming pieces of root. A few thin meat slices rest by the flat stone to drain fat. From the hearth centre a ring of order spreads, calm and durable as wood grain. From outside, under thin night, the tent looks like a shell. Posters smooth. Stakes are straight. Lashings lie in their grooves. In lands farther north, people have raised great bone houses. Long bones arch like low sky. Thick hides cover. Edges chocked with pegs and stones. Inside there is always a ring of fire. Where there is a hearth, there is a home. Fire gives the roof meaning. Fire gives the wall its use. Each drop on the hide roof is answered by a warm breath inside. The watch has turned. The new watcher sits on the ash step and checks the span from hearth to wall, then runs a hand around the stone rim to gather tiny live embers. They set the sand pouch to the left and a water gourd to the right. 2 bundles of fuel, sorted by size, lie behind, close enough to touch. They pull old ash onto the hot rim and draw 2 narrow breathing lanes with a stick so wind can pass without lifting the flame. Each motion is simple and exact. Practice is set into the hand. When a flame tongue leaps, the watcher does not smother it at once. They wait half a beat to see what the wind wants, then lay a bigger log crosswise to press the flame to a safe level. The fire obeys without choking. Fire is the gathering point. Food moves from hand to hand and drops into bellies lightly as a pebble into water. Soft pieces go to elders first. The tougher slice goes to strong teeth. Children get the middle, easy to chew. No one needs to count. The rhythm is as known as a heartbeat. After eating comes handwork. You pull a hide near and take a scraper over it. The path is flat and bright. Across from you someone braids 3 small sinew strands, twisting to an even beat, each loop shedding a quiet breath. Another sets a newly shaved steak tip on the flat stone, drying its skin. All those sounds collect into a very slow music of the ring. Gold light shows truths that day hides. On someone's cheek the light builds a small wall that hides fatigue. At an elder's eye corner the warm glow deepens gentle folds. Fire lets you set aside the push of cold wind and stop scanning the dark without rest. In this just safe zone the hand finds new endurance. You know the feeling. When the back loosens and the chest breathes even, repeated motions turn neat and true. 1 extra hour each night, kept like this, means 1 more finished cord, 1 more dry hard steak, 1 more edge dressed, 1 more pouch without a torn seam. The extra is not small. Over time it changes house shape, the way of walking, the reach of people. Thin smoke slips out the door and rides the wind. The watcher knows when thicker smoke is needed for mosquitoes. In a pouch they keep a bit of punk. 1 pinch lifts a veil. Together with firelight on the trunks it makes a fence with no shouts. Sometimes grass stirs at the edge. A pair of low eyes stops. Smoke stings them. Gold makes them wary. Hearth and watcher keep the home without extra stakes. Firmness is not in fierce gear. It lives in the steady breath of a trained flame. Outside, a few torches rest in a dry place. No one toys with them. When the water's edge must be reached, 2 go together. One carries a low torch so sparks do not fall. The other carries a staff and scans. If a strange sound rises, the person at the hearth lifts the light a step so a longer shadow falls. Most of the time the fire sleeps shallow. The hearth tells the night that people are here, with smoke, warmth and order. In weak light gesture blurs. Now sound and beat grow. One counts softly while braiding, so fingers do not lose the loop. One hums a short note with each change of hand while dressing an edge. A mother lays the child's palm on the sinew, touches her throat, and gives a very short sound to show twist direction. Those sounds are easy to copy. They are not long lines. They are not complex songs. They are small and plain, repeated long enough, safe enough. it must be said clearly. The tie between hearth and the growth of speech is a grounded hypothesis, not a certainty. Dim light weakens gesture. A warm space invites sound. We cannot be absolute, yet in this ring you can feel the idea holds. You listen to that growth with skin and breath. When a child misplaces a hand, the sound turns messy. Fire throws a laughing shadow on the face. The child tries again, hears the adult sound, adjusts, off by a beat, then on. It all happens without a shout. Everyone can hear everyone while the hearth is warm. Mouth to ear is a short path. Eyes need not look far. The ring lets voice touch voice. When voice meets voice, hands grow bold and hearts open. The flame opens roads too. Push night back a span and travel becomes possible. People can camp on the ice margin and live through a north wind without knees shaking. In Bonehouse country the hearth runs all day. Noon dries gear, evening warms flakes, night cooks, late banks. Hot coals go in shallow pits and are covered with sand to warm feet. Stakes stand to windward. Hides add a layer to make a wall. Warmth holds till morning. Without fire no roof stands in salt wind sharp as a blade. With fire the roof knows how to hold people. The wall knows how to stop wind, and the voice knows how not to break. You see change printed on life in clear detail. Hands tear less because hides are scraped flat in firelight. Wood splinters lodge less because stake tips are dried. Cords hold because there is time to braid slow. Leather shoes dry faster because there is a warm stone. Children sleep deep because bellies are full. Elders tell more because throats are not ice cold. These small things add up to group durability. People are harder to scatter when each night there is a place to return to. A hearth and a circle. The ring does more than feed. It settles hearts. If there was friction by day, night rounds the edges. A hunter who fumed at a broken point sits and dresses an edge. Warmth gathers the anger into a point, and the hand fixes the fault. The cord braider who had sore eyes from dust sits half-lidded and the fingers still twist true. The hearth mediates. Few words are needed. A slice passed left can be an apology. A seat given nearer the fire can be thanks. The circle understands that speech. Some tasks belong only to night. In dark, one person checks everything around the hearth. The water gourd, the sand pouch, small fuel, smoke path, anvil stone, the span from fire to tent edge. They walk a slow round. They look, listen, smell. They flick embers that sit too near the hide. They chock a low rim with a small stone. They lay a bit of punk on coals if insects rise. Leave these undone and morning brings trouble. Done well. No one notices. The hearth sleeps better and night becomes a thick quilt over the home. From the fire you step out to look at the sky. Thin cloud drifts. Stars hang sparse at the forest rim. When eyes have learned the dark, you turn back and each person looks like a crescent. Goldmark's brow, nose, and shoulder. Between them small hand stories move. An elder points to a soot mark on the peak to recall a monsoon wind. A hunter taps a stake tip on stone to show where a rhythm should stop. A child watches, then does it in silence. Night is a school of repetition. The hearth is a quiet teacher with no letters and no board, but many illustrations on skin and stone. Warmth does more than shield. It opens ground. Once the night forest was a wall. Now, with torch in hand and hearth at the back, people dare to step to the edge to fetch water, clear a path, mark a route. Sometimes fire helps push an animal from brush so morning hunting goes easier. A thin ring of smoke blocks a small creature and makes it hesitate. Enough for the band to set a gentle snare. Everything holds an even beat. No shouting, no driving hard. Fire teaches that strength is not always loud. Often it is steady rhythm without stumble. You remember days before a steady hearth. Night was to be endured. People curled tight, eyes wide with fear. Wind slipped under covers like needles. Animal steps made backs go numb. Now night has work. Night has school. Night has seats. Night has sounds to repeat, lines to straighten, marks to fade. Morning no longer begins with fatigue. It begins with a rake of ash, a red line appearing, warmth opening in the chest, and hands that find their proper job. On the last watch the fire is lowered to deep sleep. Another thin ash blanket goes on. A small stick is wedged under the stone rim to keep a breathing slit so it does not die. Torches are set where morning feet will not catch. Door lashings to windward are tightened. Sleeping faces are checked. A hide is pulled over thin shoulders. No one is told to do this, yet it is always done. The hearth makes people alike in small cares. You rest your chin on your wrist and listen. No more crackle, only coal drawing in, like someone pulling a word back to save it for morning. Band, group, house, hearth, voice, hand, eye, all rest on one beat. Outside the forest edge is still. Inside, warm skin touches skin. On the roof, drops gather and fall. Each drop is a period. Each period says night can write. When a silver smear rubs the tree line, the early watcher sits up. No need for a big flame. Only a nudge. A red lens opens like a fisheye. The hearth yawns and wakes. People turn. You pull the leather basket close and see what lay by the warm rim overnight. Steak tips dry and hard. Sinew set. Edges keen. All ready. Night did its work. Day will do the rest. Fire stands between and ties the halves. You lift the flap and step onto the ground. Cold scent brushes the bridge of the nose. On wet soil, a faint ash line remains, like a hand drawn across water. The circle from last night is not bright, yet it sits whole in the memory of arms and legs. You know you will return when the sun tilts. From such circles, words grow clearer, homes stand firmer, roads run farther, and hearts rest. In that rest, the hearth keeps breathing. Because the hearth breathes, the band lives together, not only one more night, but many. When the day is tired, the ring wakes in truth. You sit a little off the hearth so you can see both people and door. Coals draw into a rim of light. At times a small flower fire opens, then fades. No one tells anyone what to do. Each knows their part. The waterkeeper shakes the gourd to hear the wave within. The woodkeeper feels each bundle to be sure no damp piece hides. The ashkeeper draws a smooth rim on the coal edge like a cup lip. Each act follows. Nothing extra. Nothing missing. Like an old hand drill everyone knows. Order spreads from the ring. Dry steak tips do not share space with damp hides. The children's place does not overlap the tinder place. The path in and out stays clear. No one blocks it with gear. These rules do not need to be carved into wood. They are carved into habit. If someone sets a thing wrong, another hand returns it and taps an elbow in a gentle reminder. Safety is a soft cord around the band. Soft, yet it does not tear. Thin smoke slips out the door and clings to shadowed trunks, then fades. Many times a strange pair of eyes has paused at the edge and gone. A flicker works like a shield without a roar. Sometimes the heavy tread of a big animal stops in a wind shadow. The watcher raises the flame by a notch, not high enough to provoke, just enough to cast a longer body. Hesitation grows out there, then quiets. Fire does not drive with threat. Fire drives with steady presence, with ash smell, with gold light. In bone houses of the cold windlands, fire is the heart. Ancient bones are the ribs. Thick hides cling tight and every seam is chocked. The hearth sits in the middle. A smoke vent is cut at the peak. When the wind is vicious, the watcher drops the vent lower and sets a stone to slow the draw. When snow falls, the watcher drags coals aside so live ones sleep under ash, ready to wake with a pinch of tinder. The house stands by frame and hide. It lives by fire. Without fire, hides are wet and cold. Without fire, frames groan. Without fire, voices die. With fire, night grows longer and stays warm. 2 more hours are 1 more cord, 1 patch, 1 edge. Elders find breath to carry old tales. Children learn to pass cord between fingers. The hunter fixes a morning slip. Night ferries small quiet things, and those carry the band through wind seasons, through weeks of rain, through hunger. In firelight, the separate tasks knit into a net you can trust. In the morning, that net lifts the feet. A small layer of language grows around the hearth. Not long songs, not prayers. Short sounds that guide hand and eye. While braiding, lips round and close. While dressing an edge, the throat hums. While counting, the tongue taps teeth with a dry click. Children copy. Adults tune. Over many nights these sounds grow as familiar as smoke. No one stands to claim an invention. No one writes. From the warm rhythm, words find hold. Let it be said again clearly. The tie between hearth and speech is a reasoned hypothesis. Dim light weakens gesture. Warm space invites sound. We cannot be certain. Yet in tonight's ring you can feel the idea has legs. At watch change, a hand touches your shoulder. You rise, give the seat. and walk a round of the tent. At the edge a few torches rest in their rack. Exit stakes are crossed so you will not trip at dawn. You check the ropes at the wind corner. All is well. Back by the fire, the new watcher draws the ash into 2 wings, opens 2 thin breathing lanes, and sets a cross log so the flame will not leap. The fire obeys, calm like a tamed creature. The ring closes. A low talk runs, unhurried. Someone drops a pinch of dry peel into the coals. A light scent lifts and covers the fat. Someone draws a line in ash to mark the noon wind. Someone lifts your hand and sets a stake tip at the right place on the warm stone. These motions do not need long words. They are the signs of living together. The hearth turns those signs into paths in the mind. In the morning the hand follows them at once. Some nights the hearth teaches quiet. Someone is sore over a small thing from the day. Warmth lets the soreness sink into skin. The file runs over stone. Each stroke is one beat of yielding. A slice past left. A closer seat by the flame. These apologies are light as ash. They fall on the hot surface, rise and vanish, leaving a flat ground for morning. Fire carries more than food. It carries hearts over roughness. From the hearth, range grows. Cold lands are no longer walls. People learn to raise a house in gusts, to keep sleep pits warm with coals and sand, to set drying racks where warmth runs even. Roads go farther because the night before made cords and edges and mended pouches. The band reaches new water, new hunting, new shelter. Each place raises a new ring, like tonight's, with different tree scents, different winds, different roof lines. The hearth is a seed. It takes root where it goes, warms the place, then links places into a living map. You picture fire drawing a thin line on earth. From a southern cave, the light runs along a river, over low hills, into a small wood, then onto wide grass. Each stop is a ring, a meal, a passing of skill. Over generations that line thickens into a broad path of memory. By day you cannot see it. By night each hearth is a low star that joins others by steady breaths. From those invisible ties the idea of us takes shape. Not only a group around coals, a long chain where each ring remembers the rings before and invites the rings after. Children grow in that habit. They know paths by the smells of different smoke. They know seasons by how the air feels on skin at one arm from the hearth or 2. They know people by where they sit, elders windward or leeward, hunters at what angle to listen and mend. These soft maps live in the body before they have names. One day, when words are thick, they may be told as long stories. For now they live like water under grass, hidden and flowing. Some nights the hearth is a school for plans. A watcher uses a twig to sketch the water flat in ash, dots the entry, draws a fine line for wind. Another sets 3 pebbles as 3 standing points. Everyone looks. There is no loud debate. In the morning, feet land where the dots were. This way of thinking grows from low light and flat ash. Fire gives images a ground to appear. Plans become calm, like a flame kept to steady breath. By late watch the hearth sleeps shallow. The watcher draws coals aside and spreads ash like a blanket. 2 morning bundles are set in order. The water gourd lies at the right rim where a quick hand can find it. The sand pouch is checked again. Sleeping faces are scanned for who can wake fast. All is quiet. Inside the tent night is like the belly of a boat. Fire is the bow lamp. The boat does not move. The heart moves, from strain to rest, from scattered to one piece. After a while, sleep fills the space. Only the wind lifts the grass edge. On the hide roof drops gather and fall, each a small step on wet ground. You touch earth by the hearth with a fingertip. Warm enough. Clean smoke clings to skin. Because of that warmth, bones do not lock. Because of that warmth, the heart does not pound to hold heat. Because of that warmth, the brain rests deep and leaves room for morning plans. No numbers are needed. The body knows. You recall the small gifts night has given. A new edge. A cord done. A stake dry. A small fault eased. A sound done right. Tomorrow will be busy. Night has laid the path. At first silver, the early watcher turns and nudges ash. A red comes up like an eye-opening. Warmth spreads before the air grows colder. The hearth is a mild creature that knows its name and comes when called. No one declares it, yet all feel a current tying evenings together. Fire is the base beat. From it the hand can do fine work. From it words can catch. From it a house can stand where wind lashes. From it roads can run beyond the known. From it a band can stay together longer. Firelight pulls the day into two clear parts, work in the light. Repair in the dark. You pass through the flap and meet early air. The grass edge is wet. The fine earth shows old prints that have faded. The stone ring sits like a necklace laid down after a long night. In your head you hear coal ticks, cords sliding on hide, stake tapping stone. These sounds fold into one rhythm. It will walk with you all day. When the sun drops, the rhythm finds the hearth again, waiting for a rake of ash and the rise of a red line. The circle returns. People sit close. Hands work, words grow, step back and see the road. The hearth has reshaped the house, taught quiet speech, raised an invisible wall against yellow eyes and grass, opened the way to the cold wind lands. A little each night. No rush, no noise. From these quiet rings something of the future begins to breathe. We do not need the big name. We can feel this beat will repeat a very long time. You sit again and warm your hands. The face beside you brightens, then dims with the flame. The air smells of baked root, dry hide, clean ash, a trace of fat. Outside, the forest is still larger than people. Inside, the ring makes people larger than fear. Shelter does not live in posts. It lives in a shared breath. Words are few, yet understanding is thick. Hands still work, yet fatigue is thin. In all of this, the fire stands in the middle, an exposed heart that everyone keeps. The hearth is lowered one last time before dawn. Ash covers coals like a thin blanket. Everything sits in its familiar place. The flap is drawn to cut wind. The watcher leans back and dozes. On the roof, the last drop falls. In the chest, the breath is even. As the tree line changes colour, the fire reddens again. A new circle will ripen tonight, another after that. Fire will still be at the centre. From it, small stories will be told by hand, by smell, by short sounds. From it, the band will keep learning how to be together. You rise, lift the flap, and step into morning. Underfoot, a fine ash line is like a drawn rule. Ahead, the day is wide. Behind, the hearth is warm. In the head, a calm thought. From this circle, the dawns to come will be a little brighter. No need to speak loud. Keep the fire at a steady breath. When fire breathes steady, people breathe steady. When people breathe steady, the road ahead grows gentle, as if a small light had already been set in the distance. Though the wind at the cave mouth is a little warmer. In the dark, the human heartbeat is steady like an unnamed flame. From a red streak in the ash, fire has changed life's rhythm. It softens meals, opens an energy door for a large brain, eases the work of teeth and gut. It races homes in cold wind, gives the roof meaning and the wall use, draws night close so hands can still dress an edge, mend a seam, finish a cord, and trains tools to listen to heat, from darkened flint to bright cutting flakes. So tomorrow people go farther and stay safe. It gathers people into a circle where small words sprout, where shared breath stands in for fear, where knowledge passes through hands and comes to rest in memory. It pushes back yellow eyes in the grass with smoke and flicker, leads through cold with a low torch, opens a way to new water. It wakes the creative part in the bones of the hand, from the first clay pot to ideas of the shapes of the house, the road, and of us. You hear again the faint sounds of the day just gone, coals gently raked, cords sliding on hide, a stake tip tapping stone. They join into a warm current along your spine, passing through food, shelter, work, speech, protection, the seed of making, the settling like water without wind. Let the fire in your chest breathe steady. Outside, the night is gentle. Inside, peace grows like coming light. Sleep deeply,